The perfect day for the Dutch women and for the team of SD Worx Pro Time. Let's hear what she's got to say.
Well, it was quite a hard stage, quite a lot of attacking also in the final, but we managed with the team really well, and yeah, I was able to finish it off also for the girls.
Great, yeah, and you're always going to be the favourite when the stage finishes in a bunch or in a group like that, but no win is ever easy. Like, how much pressure do you feel when you're out there?
Well, most pressure comes also for myself because I'm eager to win also, but I mean, if the team works hard all day long, it's also a bit of more pressure. But it was also quite a difficult final because it was fast downhill till the corner to the left on 500 meters to go. So yeah, it was quite technical also.
So the stage today is 110 kilometres, starting in Clitheroe, running all the way to Blackpool. You can see the rain is falling as the riders are getting ready, deciding what they are going to wear on a soggy day that we're going to have today. Some of the riders warming up on their static trainers, predicting a really aggressive start for what is a very front-loaded day. Some of the smaller continental teams will definitely want to be in the breakaway. And for SD Worx Pro Time, they're going to want a repeat of stage 1. Now, this is a route that we've got in store today. Stage 2, Clitheroe to Blackpool, as I mentioned, 110.5 kilometres, 1,392 metres of elevation, 2 categorised climbs, 2 Cat 1 climbs early on. A very front-loaded stage today. We've got 1 sprint that comes with 66 kilometres to go, and then the final is very, very flat indeed. So we do expect a really, really aggressive start, but it is how that start is raced as to what we're going to see in the finale. As you can see, all of the riders here lining up on the start line for stage 2 of the Lloyds Tour of Britain Women. The flag drops and the neutral begins. Over 7 kilometres today in that neutral section. You can see Lorena Wiebes here looking resplendent in that green race leader's jersey after a stunning performance yesterday. Some of the riders looking more cheery than others. Some looking very, very cold indeed. I'm sure there would have been a lot of conversation this morning as to what the riders were going to wear out there. A lot of unpredictable showers, heavy downpours forecast today throughout the stage. As I said, 110.5 kilometres today, 1,392 metres of elevation. We can see Alice Wood here, the race director, just waiting to drop that flag to indicate the start proper of today's stage. You can see this is live. My name is Danny Rowe. Alongside me is Lizzie Banks, who will talk you through what is going to be another really exciting day, Lizzie.
Yes, it definitely is, Danny. Well, I hope that the race director, Alice Wood, didn't spend too much time in the hairdresser this morning, because the weather really is just as wild as the beautiful Ribble Valley that we are going to be heading into now. And look at that, most of the riders out there with their big, thick raincoats on, and I think the ones without the raincoats on, those are the ones that you're going to see wanting to start that race hard and fast today.
Absolutely, and a little update from the race itself this morning as a result of an ongoing blockage on the route of today's stage. The early part of the stage has had to be rerouted at approximately 17.5 kilometres, so the race will rejoin the planned route at the foot of the ascent of Waddington Fell, which is the first categorised climb of the day. The remainder of the route to Blackpool will remain unchanged, but the organisers have sent their thanks to the teams and the riders, police and local authorities for their assistance and cooperation. So that does change things slightly as we approach that first Queen Mountain, Lizzie. Obviously this has come late for the riders. They were delayed at the start. Does this stress some of the riders out, and how do the teams then adapt to the changes that we're going to see today?
Yes, definitely, Danny. I think, those riders will have spent nearly half an hour on the start line in the rain because there was one 15-minute delay, followed by a second 15-minute delay. So when we saw them pretty cold back then, that's really for a reason. And another thing is that they're not going to have done that prep on that new part of the route, as we see the riders just heading through kilometre 0 now for the official race start.
And I think we're going to have a very aggressive start on our hands here in Clitheroe. It is a very front-loaded stage though, Lizzie. We were talking about that first Queen of the Mountains, Waddington Fell, which is a 3.4 kilometre climb at 6.6%, but there's quite a lot of uncategorised climbs as well that comes early. Again, narrow roads with the weather, that dynamic can change for a lot of riders too. We saw riders warming up on the static trainers this morning, as well as in anticipation of what we were talking about as to being a super tough start today.
Those warm-ups for the riders always indicate that something is going to happen early on in the race, and the riders need to be really ready for a fast race. As you said, Danny, we're going to be heading into the first category, Waddington Fell, and we've actually got the little diversion because of the car crash on the course that means that we actually miss the original start of the QOM as we come through the town of Easington instead of through Sladeburne and Newton. But the riders will be dipping down to the river and crossing back up and coming back up anyway, so they're actually going to have the same amount of elevation, and we still have the really crucial part of Waddington Fell, which is that 1 kilometre with 9% near the top, which is sure to split up the peloton.
I actually had the pleasure of riding the first 70k of this route as we've got our first attack here coming in. This looks like Joe Tinley. Now, we spoke about Joe Tinley yesterday, didn't we? The British rider for the Smurfit West Rock cycling team. There were 6 teams yesterday without a rider present in that front group of 32 riders, Lizzie. So what would they have been told today? I guess get in that break.
Get in that break, get on the TV and get up there early, because if the race splits up and if you can't get over those climbs, then you're not going to get that TV time unless you're up and out of there early. This is such a hard race, and once it all blows apart, it's so difficult to be in that front group. We only saw 32 riders, I think, in that front group across the line. And look at this beautiful shot across the Forest of Bowland here that the riders are heading into on what a grisly day they have got. Look, and you can see those climbs coming up as well for the riders. It's going to be a hard day out there.
And just to let you know, we're bringing this race to you with 4 and 5G coverage. This area of the UK has very low signal, so we will do our best to bring you the best pictures that we possibly can. What impact would this weather have on the riders though, Lizzie? Because I know when I was riding, I had to almost change my psychology to not be defeated before I started pedalling.
Well, I think I'm one of those riders that's a little bit opposite to you, Danny, and I would have absolutely relished a day like today. I would have been raring to go. But really, on the start line of days like today, you've got a complete split in the peloton. You've got a lot of riders that do not want to be there and do not want to race, and you've got a lot of riders who really want to go for it. Now a race like this is going to really suit those gritty riders, the Belgians, perhaps the Brits, and it can really bring the best out in some of those riders. As look, we've already got Liverlula Jaco attacking here on the left-hand side of the road. They had such an attacking race yesterday, Danny.
They really did. They were a team that impressed me. Caroline Anderson and Quinty Ton respectively finishing 4th and 5th on the stage, but it wasn't just the result, was it? It was the way that they were racing, because we were constantly seeing attack after attack after attack. One rider I just saw as well at the back of that field was Petra Stiasny, and unfortunately for her, losing a lot of time yesterday, over 24 minutes, and she is almost the opposite type of rider, where she will not be happy in these conditions.
Absolutely, she is a real pure climber, and she is not a rider who likes to be in the bunch. We can see her in that red jersey of Human Powered Health there, right at the back of the bunch, second rider back, and look, she's really keeping her distance. She's so ginger as she goes around those corners, and she just wants to get around this race safely. If she, of course, won that race up the Angliru in the Vuelta and had a really nasty crash in training, so I'm sure it has knocked her confidence as well. And it's going to be a tough day out there for her today.
And if you didn't join us yesterday, this is the next round of the UCI World Tour for the women. One of the most prestigious stage races that the women have had for many years, being taken over by British cycling in recent years. We had a couple of years without this race in 2020 due to COVID, of course, and then 23 when the race was taken over from Sweet Spot to British Cycling. Now with the race director being Alice Wood, former professional cyclist and now colleague of ours as well in commentary. He's done a great job in the route as well, Lizzie. It's probably the hardest route that we've had in recent years, and I think we'll really see splitting up every single stage, especially tomorrow, which you could, I guess, call this Queen stage.
Yeah, I think tomorrow and then the next day, both two stages in Wales are going to be very, very tough for the riders. You mentioned Alice Wood, and it made me think that this is a kind of day that she would have absolutely loved. A rider who lived up in the north of England and trained in all sorts of conditions. So a day like this definitely wouldn't have fazed her, and I imagine that she's sitting with glee in that race director's car today.
Lancashire's first ever women's stage race as well here. Clitheroe hosted the men's race in 2015. Blackpool has hosted 3 starts and 5 finishes across the race's history. It actually includes Mark Cavendish's stage win there in 2012. But now it's the turn of the women, and yesterday, again, SD Worx Pro Time showing their strength and depth to have 5 riders present in that front group, 5 out of 6, to be able to play their cards, follow the attacks. Because, Lizzie, to be fair to the other teams, we talked about it yesterday, how do you beat a rider like Lorena Wiebes? You said, and rightly so, to try and isolate her, to try and effectively use up her teammates before that lead out, and that's what they tried to do. But yet again, they just proved that they are such a strong force and rode really well together as a collective.
Yeah, I mean, Kim LaCourte said before the stage that if you don't try something, then you're just racing for second. And Kim LaCourte tried absolutely everything she could. It was a very, very aggressive last 27 kilometres on that finishing circuit around Cockermouth, and back once again to the finish line in Cockermouth. But they just couldn't shed those SD Worx riders. There were too many of them, they were too strong, and they were working so well and so cohesively as a team. And that's going to be something that we're going to have to keep an eye on today, because there is a chance that a move could get up the road ahead of that fast flat run into Blackpool. But how are they going to get a move up there that doesn't have an SD Worx rider in it? It's going to be very, very difficult. And if there is an SD Worx rider in there, will they cooperate?
You can see a lot of the teams here present at the front of the race. Again, quite different types of roads that we've got here in the UK compared to what the riders are used to in Europe. I don't know how they make the roads here, but for whatever reason, they are so difficult, and it's quite deceiving when you look at a road book, isn't it, for the Tour of Britain, and you get to the UK and you just feel like you're pedalling through mud all day long.
Yeah, the roads definitely feel very, very heavy compared to the luxury roads that you have out in Girona, where a lot of the riders live, or over in Europe. 100 kilometres in the UK feels like 130 anywhere else, and I think when you chuck in the rain and mud and everything else, it's just even harder. And I mean, the UK has been waiting months for rain now, and all we needed was a great British bike race to make sure that it was going to chuck it down all week.
Oh, I feel sorry for the riders, but you are right, Lizzie. And as you can see now, it's already going uphill on this first uncategorised climb of the day.
Yeah, we've got 2.5 kilometres of uncategorised climbing here. And then a descent down Grunzer-Gilbeck.
We are hoping to bring you some really exciting data from the riders today from Velon, one of the sponsors of the race, and that will give us some really, as you can see here, just as I mentioned it there, so live data here from Eleanor Backstead, and Eleanor Backstead was a rider that we talked about at length yesterday, Lizzie, as to the instrumental job that she does for her team, UAE Team Limad, on the front, Marshall in the front, currently riding at just shy of 300 watts with a cadence of 92 RPM. And then you can see that speed, 37.1 kilometres an hour. She has such an engine, doesn't she?
Yeah, both her and her sister Zoe Backstead both have phenomenal engines on them. Like, she's really a legend of that UAE Team Limad team, and you can see her there on the left-hand side of the screen in that white jersey, just with her right arm out, pointing out that little edge of the road. And that's something the riders need to be super careful of today, because these roads on the edges, there's debris, there's things that might give you a puncture, and there's things that can cause a crash if you're not careful. So you have to be really, really careful of those edges of the road today. See those gravel sections just to the right of Eleanor Backstead there.
Unfortunately, 8 riders not taken to the start today for different reasons, but one of those was a really hard crash that we saw midway through the race, stage 1 yesterday. Those riders not starting: Kaya Reese from the High Tech Products Fluid Control team, Rebecca Gardner from the Great British team, unfortunately Jess Roberts as well. So the Great Britain national team losing 2 of their 6 riders. Gladys Verhulst, Vild for AG Insurance, Soudal. Now that is really bad luck for Gladys Verhulst, who actually had to pull out of the race last year after a terrible crash sustained on stage 2. Lieke Nooyen from Visma Lisa bike, the Dutch road race champion, who we saw hitting her head pretty hard. Jo Tinley with her arm in the air here, just wanting some assistance from her team car. Maeve Plouffe from the O'Shea Red Chili Bikes team, Connie Hayes as well from the same team, and Lydia Cusack from the Smurfit West Rock cycling team. And it was such bad luck, Lizzie, for Gladys Verhulst-Wild coming into this race. We know how motivated they are, arguably with the favourite in Kim LaCourte, who is very open about her real target of GC here.
Yeah, such a shame for that team, and particularly for Gladys. Last year on stage 2, she fractured 8 ribs. She had an associated pneumothorax, so a punctured lung, and she also fractured her humeral head at the top of her arm. And she said last night that she came here to fight the demons which remained with her from last year's tour, and now here she is with a broken collarbone. So we send all our thoughts and healing wishes to Gladys Verhulst-Wild, who's really had the worst possible start to this Tour of Britain Women for AG Insurance, Soudal.
And how does she go about then trying to turn things around again? Because that is so tough for a rider, especially one that's come out and said that she's trying to face her demons after what happened last year. To have something so significant again forcing her out of the race. You've had similar with injuries, illnesses in the past in your professional cycling career. How do you step out of this consumed bubble and try and bring yourself back to the top again?
It's very, very difficult, and you know, riders who've had bad crashes often come back with a lot of fear, and we often see that it takes them quite a long time to really get back to their former self. And also it depends on the race. Gladys Verhulst was obviously coming back to the race, to the very race where she had that really bad crash last year, and you know, hoping that getting through this year's race, that could change her mentality. And so I just hope that once she's recovered, and thankfully she's nowhere near as badly injured as she was last year, it's, you know, we sort of say lightly in cycling, just a collarbone fracture. You know, hopefully she can make a relatively quick recovery, go to a smaller race perhaps, try and build her confidence up slowly, and then come back to a World Tour race where she belongs. And yeah, just try and get those feelings back slowly. But it is very, very difficult, and a lot of riders struggle with that mental aspect.
19 teams here, totaling 112 starters that we had. 13 World Tour teams, 5 UCI Continental teams, and the Great Britain national team, all fielding 6 riders. I mentioned the 8 non-starters that we've had on stage 2. Unfortunately, after those crashes, the injuries that the riders sustained yesterday. Rihanna Marcus, you can see here, in the colours of Little Trek. Another aggressive ride from her yesterday after a very successful Tour de France only 10 days ago. And we spoke at length again, Lizzie, yesterday as to how the riders will be recovered, how that will change the way they approach this race, perhaps the targets that they'll have, the realistic ambition that they'll have coming into the Tour of Britain Women, which is renowned to be a really tough race. It demands a lot from these riders with the parkour, the types of roads, physically and mentally. How will different riders kind of approach that? I guess Zoe Baxter being one of them who we've talked about as, will she be looked after from the Canyon SRAM team for general classification? We know how versatile she is as a rider. Unfortunately didn't make that front group yesterday, but also about that split dynamic between herself and Consoni.
Yeah, I think we saw that Zoe Baxter was pretty knackered yesterday. You know, she's come out of what was almost certainly the hardest race of her life in the Tour de France, and I kind of expected to see her at the front, but I think she just didn't have it in her. And now look, we can see Zoe Baxter's power. I think that 50 watts must have just been when she was on a slight descent, so if we get it refreshed there, we might see what she's got as she goes up this uncategorized climb to Tour side. And you mentioned about how the riders approach this. Well, we can see how they're approaching this on this narrow road, because the riders that want to race, they're right at the front, and the riders that aren't interested, they're at the back. We see Rhiannon Marcus there from Little Trek on the right-hand side. Oh, and a puncture there for one of the UAE Team Emirates Team Limad rider. Actually, I think it was a mechanical. I think that her chain had slipped off the back and she looked like she was trying to get it back on. That is not a good time, because after Tour side, we've got a rapid descent where we take the diversion, of course, across to Waddington Fell, and then straight into the first categorized climb of the day.
A few of the riders just struggling to hold on to the back of this peloton. You can see the wind blowing for the riders. We saw a little bit of action yesterday with a few teams trying to ride in that echelon formation to try and split the peloton, which it did. It came back together, and it was more of the constant attacks we had in the final 30 kilometers, which really decimated the peloton and formed that front group of 32 riders that we had coming to the line into Cockermouth yesterday. Now the wind is blowing at around 16 to 17 kilometers an hour. That picks up as we get closer to the coast into Blackpool. And for a lot of the day, Lizzie, the riders are going to have a crosswind from their right-hand side, blowing south, and then into the finish, more of a cross headwind.
Yeah, Danny, I think as the riders come out of Broughton with about 40 kilometers to go, they're going to have a really exposed section where they do risk having a crosswind. It depends on the strength of the wind later in that day. But as we saw yesterday, that there are a lot of riders who are motivated to tear this apart. Look, we've got Human Powered Health there, right, both on the front of the peloton, and Petra Stiasny here on the back. So they've got all bases covered, front and back of the peloton, as we're really near the top of this uncategorized climb into Tour side now.
You can hear the screeching of brakes from the riders as there's that ricochet effect. You can see the rider from UAE Team Limad has been able to get herself back. It looks like
Caroline Swinkles.
It is Caroline Swinkles, yeah. You can see that with her style, can't you? Caroline Swinkles having a brilliant day yesterday. We'll just bring you up to speed with the stage result, the general classification, and how that looks after stage one, because Caroline Swinkles managed to pick up a couple of seconds in those intermediate sprints. You can see her talking into the radio, just telling her team that she's back, and she'll probably be doing her best to try and move up as quickly as she possibly can. So yesterday's stage was won, of course, by Lorena Wiebes, ahead of Chiara Consoni, and British rider Josie Nelson finishing in third. The GC, of course, with Lorena Wiebes, who is leading 4 seconds ahead of Chiara Consoni, but Caroline Swinkles is sat in third position, 5 seconds behind, having picked up 5 bonus seconds on the road. We had 2 intermediate sprints, which had 3, 2 and 1 seconds on offer there. Misha Bredeveld from the team of SD Works Pro Time also picking up 3 seconds, so she is now sat in 5th behind Josie Nelson, who was of course 3rd on the stage. Kim LaCour managed to pick up 2 seconds so sits in 6th. Quintiton for the Live Olulajaco team in 7th at 10 seconds, and the rest of that group of 32 riders at 10 seconds, Lizzie. So it kind of just starts to give us this narrative as to who are the riders that are really going for the general classification.
We talked yesterday, didn't we, about how Caroline Swinkles, Kim LaCourte and Misha Bredevold were 3 of those riders who were real potentials for the general classification, for the overall race here. And we've seen that in those bonus seconds yesterday, of course, with Caroline Swinkles taking 5 out of 6 available bonus seconds at the intermediate sprint, Misha Bredevold taking 3, and Kim LaCourte-Panier taking 2. So rider 43 there with a flat tyre at the back, which is that is Wilma Antila of Canyon SRAM Racing Team. Let's see if she can get service before we've got the fast descent coming up. But we're actually going to be cutting out the village of Sladeburn on this route, Danny, which is a bit of a shame because Sladeburn is actually really well known for a beautiful piece of brass band music composed by William Rimmer, who isn't a local man. He actually is from Merseyside, but he visited Sladeburn during a period of illness. He came there for a period of convalescence, and he was so enamoured with the village, the kindness of the villagers and the talent of their musicians that he wrote the Sladeburn March, which has become a famous piece in the repertoire of brass bands across the country.
I was waiting for you to talk about this piece of brass band music. Lizzie, we did kind of have a little chat, didn't we, earlier today, and you were a little bit gutted that we wouldn't be going through Sladeburn, but thankfully has been able to give us that beautiful fact. But one that I was waiting to tell you was actually something perhaps no one knows, is that I was part of a brass band back in the day. I used to play the trombone.
I did not know that,
so there
Danny.
we go.
Oh, well, maybe if there's a quiet moment, you can give us a little bit of toot on your trombone.
I don't think I'd know how to read music anymore, but anyway, you can see now at the front of the bike race the pace is really picking up on this descent, and I think this is going to be the story of the day. A lot of the riders, a lot of the teams will get that constant communication in their ears from their sports directors, especially with the weather conditions that we've got, to be at the front. It is the safest place to be with these narrow roads, and of course before the climbs. Give some riders that sliding room. We talk about the sprinters who could make it today. It is deemed as a sprint day by the race organisers, especially because it is so front loaded, with the top of the second climb coming with 73 kilometres to go, and then we've got a little bit of undulation, but really the last sort of 40-50 kilometres is pretty much pan flat, so no real stress. You can see here at the front of the peloton currently a few riders trying to move up on the outside. And we've just got our first move of the day. Looks like a rider from Uno X Mobility. Unfortunately, Lizzie, they lost time with one of their GC riders yesterday. Katrin Alerud was in that second group at 2:38. Their highest placed rider is Marta Edseth. So we'll see hopefully soon who this rider is that's made a move off the front. So one rider has managed to get herself about 100 metres off the front of the peloton here as we're coming into that approach of the Queen of the Mountain. This is number 150.
That's Albert Grev for Uno X Mobility.
Now, she's no threat on the general classification, Lizzie, at 2 minutes and 38 seconds, and especially as one solo rider. Do you think we'll have much action behind?
Well, I think she might have left it a little bit too late to get away. We're about 3.5, 4 kilometres away now from the point on the course where the riders are going to take that diversion. And we actually take a diversion onto a very, very narrow road through the hamlet of Easington. And there's one more sort of unclassified rise, and then from there it's sort of flat and downhill into this sharp left-hand turn onto this very, very narrow road. And when we approach that turn, the directors are going to be in everybody's ears saying, get to the front now.
I've also had a little bit of information from Alice Wood, and she said that it's been a bit of a nightmare this morning. They didn't find out until 11, and they managed to get a road closure and permission from the police to race, as well as a route safety manager assessing if it was safe to race. The teams and riders have been warned to race here with caution. So the diver starts at 93.1 kilometres to go and rejoins at 88 kilometres to go. It was the best option over neutralising until kilometre 20, where they would just get too cold or cut the loop completely and only making it an 80-kilometre stage. So fair play to the whole of the team at British Cycling, the race organisers, for finding the best viable option here, Lizzie.
Yeah, they've been in such a difficult situation, limited time to do what is really a very complicated change. Like you said, Danny, the police have to be involved. Everything has to be secured to make sure there are no cars on the road. And I think they've done a brilliant job. It was so important to keep this loop into the beautiful Forest of Bowland, the area of outstanding natural beauty, not only for the lovely area itself, but also for the toughness and the grittiness of the racing, where we're going to get to climb that really tough climb of Waddington Fell. And thankfully, although we missed the very bottom bit of the climb, we're still going to get that tough 1 kilometre section at 9 kilometres right at the top, which has the potential to split the race apart as the wind comes hard from the riders' left-hand side as they climb up there. 15 seconds now for Alberta Greve. She's trying to get that gap over the peloton before they head down to the left turn where we're taking the diversion through Easington.
Matilda McKibben from the O'Shea Red Chili Bikes team just making her way onto the back of the peloton. Let me tell you, this climb is really, really tough indeed. I'm not a professional anymore, but I had that pleasure of riding a lot of the first part of today's stage last Sunday in the Ride the Route Sportif organised by British Cycling. And I remember thinking about how the riders would feel going up it, and that it was definitely a potential opportunity to really force some aggression into the stage. .93 kilometres to go, one lone leader. You can see Little Trek at the front. Also, huge presence from AG Insurance Soudal. That looks like Alex Manley on the front. Just to the left of her is Kim LaCourt, the rider we've been talking about as to the favourite for the general classification. But Lizzie, do you think she did too much yesterday?
It's hard to say, Danny. If she had won the stage and if she had got away, we would have said absolutely not. She did everything she could. She was right to attack about 50 times as she did. And if you don't try, you don't know. I was always of the mindset that you have to take that. You have to take that chance. You have to take that chance, and if you don't take that chance, you will never know. And I think Kim LaCourt races like that as well. She will have used up a lot of energy, but everybody had to use up a lot of energy there. Lorena Wiebes said how hard it was in that final section of the race, and I think it was just hard racing for everybody. Look, we can see that team of AG Insurance Soudal lined up on the left-hand side and ready for it. Just to their left on the screen, we've got Rihanna Marcus in the black jersey of Little Trek with the red helmet. Behind her is Clara Caponi, and behind her is the white jersey of the best young rider of Fleur Moors. Now beside them in the yellow helmets, we've got Jumbo Visma with their leader Femke de Vries. And just to their left is Femke Heritzer on the front for SD Works Pro Time. Behind her, of course, Lorena Wiebes in the Lloyds Tour of Britain leaders jersey. And on the far left of your screen, we've got Human Powered Health in those red and purple jerseys with the pink helmets. Sorry, not Jumbo Visma in the yellow helmets. I'm living in the past, Danny. That is Visma Lease a Bike, of course.
It's hard to get out of the habit, isn't it, Lizzie? And again, bringing you up to speed on the different classifications. You mentioned young Fleur Moors, of course, in that white young riders jersey. There was actually only 3 under 23 riders which qualify for the young riders jersey in that front group of 32 yesterday. Fleur Moors, Juliana Londono from the Team Picnic Post and L team, and Julia Kopecky He rides for Team SD Works Pro Time. Queen of the Mountains jersey is worn by Audrey de Keersmacher from Picnic Post NL, who was one of 2 riders in the initial break, with Arabella Blackburn, who unfortunately suffered a wasp sting, asked for some antihistamine on the road, unfortunately didn't get it, and said it affected her throughout the stage. Audrey de Keersmacher went on to collect 10 points in yesterday's stage and holds a lead of 4 points over Steffi Haberlin from Team SD Works and Lauren Dixon, but 20 points on offer today, Lizzie, on the 2 first category climbs that we've got.
That's right, Danny. 20 points on offer today, another 20 points on offer tomorrow as we head into Wales. And we really expect there to be a little bit of a fight for that QOM jersey, the Queen of the Mountains jersey. As we can see, the leader, Alberta Greve, has just turned right onto that very, very narrow road here over the cattle grid. And the peloton will be following her very shortly as she can head towards Waddington Fell, which we see in the background.
The riders will know this is coming, and although they've been told to ride with caution, this is a bike race, let's not forget, so there will be a big fight for position in here, and it will make a difference in that approach to the climb. Just trying to see if any riders have been caught out a little bit as we approach this very, very narrow road, the diversion that we've got after the road was blocked on the race course earlier this morning. Caroline Schwinkels will be wearing the points jersey on behalf of Lorena Wiebes, who has 25 points over Caroline Schwinkels' 21, going into stage 2.
Now look where AG Insurance are here, Danny. They are first and second rider. It's Kim LeCour-Pinard who's the second rider. They do not want to miss a beat as they head into this climb of Waddington Fell. I've got a feeling that Kim LeCour is going to be lighting it up as soon as we take that left-hand turn with a couple of kilometres to go.
Look at how strung out the peloton is on this narrow road, twists and turns. It actually starts climbing too before we take that left-hand turn onto the climb itself. Kilometres slightly different to that of the road book because of the diversion. This is a fantastic position to be in at the front of the race, being able to take your own lines, measure your effort accordingly. But we do expect fireworks as a few of the riders just bunny hopping over some road furniture, pointing out, you can see on the right hand side of the road a pothole which is nicely marked actually by some spray paint on the roads.
I think that's something they might have done this morning, Danny, because normally they do go and mark out these potholes, and as you were saying to us yesterday, some of the roads even get resurfaced for these races when these big races come through. But obviously not knowing until just an hour ago that this was going to be the course, they're going to have had to go out there and very quickly mark up some of these obstructions. We saw just before the marshal there with the flag, so they've done an incredible job to get everybody out on the road and keep it safe for these riders in this new sort of 4-5 kilometre section of racing. We're going to hit the original course with 88 kilometres to go, as I was saying, about 300-400 metres into the QOM of Waddington Fell. And look at the cows there watching the bike race go past. That's not every day that they get to see that, is it?
Waddington Fell, our first categorised climb of stage 2 of the Lloyds Tour of Britain Women. 3.4 kilometres, 6.6%. That will change slightly because of the diversion, but it's an inconsistent climb. Very different to the categorised climbs that we had yesterday on stage 1. Some steep sections throughout, a real chance for riders to be able to make that difference. But for this rider, Albert Greve from the UnoX Mobility team, this is a perfect situation, and brilliant to see the marshals as we enter a few little twists and turns over that small bridge. Quite a dangerous technical approach to this climb. Also on today's stage we have the 5 kilometre rule, Lizzie, so the only stage this week which has the 5 kilometre rule. So just to explain that one to you, just seeing a few riders making a move here. We don't want to miss this, of course. Let's just check what's going on in the race itself. 35 seconds to our lone leader
It was so strung out there, Danny, coming through that little hamlet of Easington.
That's what we expect on these narrow roads, but the 5 kilometre rule means that the race organisers can designate a longer safety buffer if they deem it's a little bit more technical, a little bit more dangerous coming into the finish. So if there's any incidents, crashes, mechanicals that happen within the final 5 kilometres of today's stage, it means the riders involved will be given the same time as the group that they are in when that happens.
Well, the race organiser, of course, had put this down as a mass bunch sprint on paper, but I'm not sure if that's what we're going to see with the weather conditions, with the possible wind, and with the intent in the peloton. Let's see, it's just a couple of kilometres to go now. The riders are already on that rise back up to where we're going to join the original route, and now we can see that that's one rider from Human Powered Health who's managed to get off the front. She's in between the leader of Alberta Greve and the peloton. She's got about 15 seconds there. We'll get you a name of who that rider is as soon as we can make her out.
Human Powered Health come here with a strong lineup. Maggie Coles-Lister, the sprinter. Marta Jaskulska, Arani Blanco, Stiasny, not wanting to take a bottle here on the side of the road, about to take a left-hand turn.
She's actually already on the route here, Danny, so she's back on the main road on the original climb of Waddington Fell, and she's just come into the feed zone, which is where the race begins to kick up. And you can see the Human Powered Health rider taking that left-hand turn any minute, and I've got a feeling that gap is a little bit more than 45 seconds actually, because she was already well up the road into that feed zone, and we can't even see peloton behind as the Human Powered Health rider just takes that left-hand turn as we lose the shot.
Alberta Greve solo now on this climb. There's the update of the time gaps. So Alberta Greve with a 1 minute gap to this rider who is Marta Jaskulska. So Marta Jaskulska finished in that second group yesterday, started today 44th on general classification, 2 minutes and 38 seconds down. Just to bring you the last couple of riders of the Human Powered Health team, Marit Reimakers and Nina Boisman, who also finished in the group with Marta Jaskulska yesterday.
Now Alberta Greve and Marta Jaskulska are clearly going after those 10 points at the top of the climb. Audrey de Kiersmacher, of course, yesterday taking maximum points over the first QOM, 4 points over the second, having a total of 10, but 10 are on offer just at the top of the first QOM point today. So whoever gets to the top of this climb first has the position to put themselves into the virtual Queen of the Mountains lead.
A big day for the Queen of the Mountains competition today. You can see the Soigneurs here on the side of the road using this climb, the most conducive way for the riders to be able to take a bottle, take a musette on the side of the road. And that's some really nice live data now that we're getting from Velon, presented by Elixir, one of the partners of British Cycling, one of the sponsors of the race. So Marta Jaskulska with a power of around 220 watts, a nice cadence of over 100 RPM. Looking at her, it looks a bit lower than that. I think that was probably from a slightly flatter part of the climb, but good to see her here on the drops, Lizzie. Don't generally see that on a climb, do we?
One of my old directors used to say to me, the more a rider rides in the drops, the more you know that their form is good. And she was obviously flying there, 220 watts. She's a very petite rider, so really that is a lot of watts per kilo that she's going to be putting out. And you can see Alberta Greve now, she's heading towards the steeper section. We can see the mast on the top of the climb there, and the riders are going to be heading just very slightly to the left of that. And I know that at the top of the climb, actually, we've got Tobes Cummins from Cold Dark North, which is an organisation that promotes cycling in the north of England, and particularly in this area of the Forest of Bowland. He says it's absolutely miserable weather up there, and now we can see that Marta Jaskulska has got Alberta Greve in her sights, and she's going to be chasing her down for that little bit of extra motivation, having that carrot ahead. Even got an orange top on her.
She has indeed, Lizzie, and you can see the grimace here on the face of Alberta Greve, just trying to do everything that she can to take maximal points over the top of this first categorised climb of the day. You can see it really ramp up, plateau slightly, a chance to have a little bit of respite, and then kicks up again into that steep section. Look at
309 watts there, Danny.
Yeah, that's big power that she's producing, and again quite a slight rider, and it's all about that power to weight ratio, isn't it, as to how fast you'll be going up a climb. But that's big power produced by Alberta Greve here. I would like to see the gap back to Marta Jaskulska, because it was coming down momentarily.
Marta Jaskulska might just get a little moment of respite as we go over this first kicker, that little plateau section, like you said, and if she can do an acceleration there to get onto the wheel of Alberta Greve, that's what she needs. As we head back to the peloton now, we've got AG Insurance on the left-hand side.
But look who's at the front, Lorena Wiebes. She knows how to race a bike. You can see her in that green race leader's jersey right at the centre of the screen, actually pushing the pace. It looks like a little crash or a tumble on the right-hand side of the road there.
Yeah, a little slowdown.
One of the riders just had to unclip. But
Lorena Wiebes is giving herself sliding room. I mean, she's not really giving herself sliding room because, like you said, Danny, she is pushing the pace. But if you start at the top of the climb, then if you do slide back, that means you're still in the best possible position you can be by the top of the climb. So she's giving herself every possible chance to get over this. And we can see Marta Jaskulska here. She's just about to head over that last little kicker where we've got that little plateau before the hardest section of the climb, with 1 kilometre to the top of the climb. A 9% average gradient.
back in that tucked aero position for Alberta Greve here. She can almost see the top of this first categorised climb up to Waddington Fell. She'll then face a 6-kilometre descent, only a couple of kilometres then of flat before that second climb begins. So it's a really brutal section of today's race. You can see almost like a roller coaster here, a very slight downhill before it really kicks up to the top, and that gap closing to Marta Jaskulska. You can see, I think that peloton was just coming around that left-hand bend there, so very much in sight in the minds of the peloton behind. And because this is a first category...
Attack here, Danny. Attack from FDJ United Suez, I think, or is it Little Trek? It's so difficult to tell with those black rain jackets on, but attack out of the front of the peloton, and it is SD Works once again who are chasing them down.
Attacking is generally the best form of defence, and that's what they're doing here. We'll just try and see exactly who this is, but it's caused alarm bells ringing behind us. A lot of the riders are trying to desperately close that gap, but will this open up now?
Oh, that is steep for Marta Jaskulska out of the saddle on the steepest part. The ramps, the steepest ramps here are up to 13%, and she is suffering. She can see the peloton behind now, and she is trying to get up to the top of that Queen of the Mountains point. We can see the banner there. Can she make it? That is 100 metres, 500 metres to go until the top of the Queen of the Mountains.
Marta Jaskulska really trying to get on terms to Alberta Greve, who is about to go through the Amoda, 500 metres to go. She just takes a look over her shoulder at Marta Jaskulska as to where she is, but let's see what's happening behind. We've got a little group, 4 riders just got themselves off the front. It is FDJ, it looks like Kate Courtney, I think, Lizzie, but we'll try and get a confirmation of that. Again, just trying to push the pace, make this hard, split this race to pieces. And Marta Jaskulska is about to make it onto the back wheel of Alberta Greve here with only a couple of 100 metres to go.
That's Kate Courtney, the second rider for FDJ United Suez. I think that is Lauren Dixon on the front. And who is it behind her? It is Steffi Harbelin from SD Works Pro Time. Now, Lorena Wiebes has slipped back a little bit. She's on the very right-hand side of the road in that green jersey. She's about the 9th rider. She's right behind the bright yellow gilet of Kim Lecourt-Pinier as we sweep back up the road here, and the 2 leaders are in sight for that chasing peloton.
That gap is coming down so quickly as the 2 riders in the lead have chosen to join forces to ride together in these final few 100 metres. Marta Jaskulska leading out Alberta Greve, but it looks like Lauren Dixon is just injecting some pace behind. She's got Kate Courtney on her wheel, Steffi Harbelin in between, Kim Lecourt is there, Lorena Wiebes just slipping back, but only with a couple of 100 metres to go. I'm sure she'll be able to hang on to this big front group that we've got. riders really struggling towards the back, but look at the effort of Lauren Dixon. She's about to make it up to these two. Lauren Dixon picking up points yesterday in the second categorised climb that we had on the route itself, but doing a fantastic job here. We know that she is joint leader with Kate Courtney, the two-time mountain bike world champion for the team and recently signed into the team of the FDJ Suez team. A big move maybe coming here from the Liv Alula-Jayco team, as I think that's Caroline Anderson just getting out of the saddle. Is it Quinty Ton? Two of the riders as they make a move. Here it is Lauren Dixon going head-to-head with Julia Kopecky, I believe this is for the team of SD Works Pro Time. Great little injection of pace here as we go over the top of our first Omoda Queen of the Mountains finish. Was that Steffi Haberlin, perhaps with
the red helmet?
The red
I
helmet,
think
the
Steffi
Swiss
Haberlin's got
champion.
that red helmet there. You can see she just accelerates around the edge of Lauren Dixon, and it's very, very close. She keeps going, and I think she just manages to get her wheel. There we go. Clear daylight. Steffi Haberlin first, Lauren Dixon, then Kate Courtney, and then we've got Human Powered Health behind, and then a little gap to the fifth FDJ United Suez rider on the road. Now this is at the back of the race here. We've got number 172, that's Madeline Leach of Hansling Elba.
So Steffi Haberlin was second, let's not forget, at the start of the day, only 4 points behind Audrey Kiersmacher, so she will take 10 points as four of the Fenix Premier Tech riders here out the back at this stage. So they're going to have a big fight to get back into terms of the race that has split to pieces over the top of that first categorised climb of the day.
Now it's a really, really fast descent now here, Danny.
Lorena Wiebes back at the front for the team of SD Works Pro Time. So she had a little bit of sliding room. She was leading out with around a kilometre to go to the top of that first categorised climb. But look how fast this descent is. It's not a technical one, but it is so, so fast. The roads are wet, the roads are greasy. So the riders have got to be careful here as they descend for the next 6 kilometres. There's only then a couple of kilometres before our second categorised climb. Nicker Pendle, again with some steep sections. You can see riders in the back desperately trying to get back into this group as one of the Ineos Mobility riders, again, just found a few bike lengths off the front of this main group, and a few fighting as well. A lot of the Fenix Premier Tech have been distanced here, Lizzie. I wonder if something else had happened. We saw that little coming together on the right-hand side of the road with around a kilometre or so to go to the top. Perhaps there's a bit of a technical problem for a few of the riders.
It's unusual to see 4 of the team together unless they're trying to bring a rider back. So perhaps there was an incident that we didn't manage to see. They were very strong in the final of yesterday's race, so I would be surprised. Could, of course, have just been fatigue, just blowing off the back of that climb. There was a very strong sort of side wind coming, and once you get that small gap, it's so difficult to get back on. We're heading down into Clitheroe here. We're going to cross the River Ribble, and as soon as we do that, we head straight back up again.
That's Ali Wollaston that I've just spotted in the rain jacket for FDJ Suez. She was a rider we were talking about as the protected sprinter for the team of FDJ Suez on stage 1. She spent a lot of the day at the back of the peloton yesterday, and again, just doesn't seem comfortable on these wet roads here between Clitheroe and Blackpool. 81 kilometres to go, and these riders will be racing. We saw yesterday, it'll be the same today, over 80 kilometres an hour on this sort of descent. Without the twists and turns, it really gives the riders an opportunity to get up to incredibly high speeds.
And with those wet roads, Danny, it makes the braking times so much longer. The riders are going to be so much more nervous. You can see Ali Wollaston coming back there, and she's giving it a little bit of time. She could actually get back onto that peloton now, but she doesn't want to get right back in, because if there is a slowing down in front of her, she needs that distance to give her the time to be able to stop.
Riders just passed a nice little cafe. I had a nice coffee in on Sunday when I rode past of this route. Yesterday it was brilliant to see so many fans out as well on the side of the road. And we got 2 riders now off the front. This looks like Katrin Allerud as well, and FDJ Suez are on the chase. Katrin Allerud is the rider for Uno X Mobility, who is attacking here out of the saddle on a slight bit of elevation on this road in between the 2 categorised climbs of the day. We are heading now towards Nicker-Pendle. Nicker-Pendle starts with 75.8 kilometres to go. There's 2 steep sections throughout the climb. It's 2.8 kilometres, 6.6%, a very inconsistent climb. We've just got some brilliant live data here come up on the screen, which is actually live as we speak. You can see that power changing, 279 watts currently. The nice cadence, 87 RPM, holding a really nice speed. But Lizzie, it looked like there's a lot of riders behind, really trying to do something. These are the 2 chasers, we believe. So no, Ali Wollaston is the rider number 1. So these are actually 2 riders out the back we saw suffering.
And that is Aniek van Alphen from Phoenix Premier Tech there, just coming back into touching distance of the rest of the peloton. So you hear those squeal of brakes as they head round the left-hand corner and over the bridge back up into Clitheroe. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the riders had wanted to hide in the bushes for the first 30 kilometres of this race, coming back to where they started this morning.
A real change in what these riders are used to in terms of the weather conditions here in Clitheroe as we head to Blackpool. This is our leader, Katrin Allerud from the Uno X Mobility team. She would have come into this Lloyds Tour of Britain with aspirations, I'm sure, to feature in the general classification. Unfortunately, couldn't take to the final day of the Tour de France because of illness. And then yesterday, I'm sure, would have been slightly disappointed not to have made that front group. 2 minutes and 38 seconds down on general classification, 66th currently, so no real threat to the peloton. If she was one of those riders that had finished in that front group yesterday, we will definitely see a bigger reaction from this group behind, because she's a very strong climber in her own right. I can just see a rider attacking off the front of the peloton. It's a human-powered health rider. They didn't have anyone in that front group yesterday, Lizzie, so desperate to find something, to take something from today's stage.
And that looks like Erica Magnaldi for UAE Team Limad on her wheel, chasing her down. I think that might have been Marit Reimakers, as we see. Is that Alex Manley? Oh no, that's Letizia Borghese for AG Insurance Sudal, trying to get back on terms to the back of the peloton.
Borghese having a brilliant ride yesterday. She finished 6th on stage 1, but she was riding in support of Kim Report. We believe it could be Marta Hussens as well. So we, again, with these rain jackets, it makes it quite hard for us to pick out these riders until we see their numbers a little bit more closely. Georgia Baker, I think that looks like to me from the Liverlula Jayco team. Another fast sprinter for the Liverlula Jayco team, who are very aggressive in the final. A few riders just getting themselves back on as we come into this flat section before the next climb begins.
Well, it's been a really chaotic start, hasn't it, Danny? Riders all over the road, racing to get back on, desperate to get back on terms with the peloton before we hit this second categorised climb of Nicker-Pendle. We see Katrin Allerud now hitting one of the uncategorised rises out of the edge of the town of Clitheroe before we hit the real start of the climb of Nicker-Pendle.
Katrin Allerud there, just clicking through the gears, trying to find a comfortable cadence, trying to sustain that power that she knows that she'll be able to hold. Really driving herself forward on these steeper sections as we head towards Nicker-Pendle. 28 seconds is the gap that we are being shown between Katrin Allerud and this peloton behind, headed up by Alex Manley from the AG Insurance Soudal team. You can see Kim LaCourte stuck like glue to her back wheel, the back wheel of the Australian rider, as is Lorena Wiebes to Femke Herritzer, and she was so complimentary of her team yesterday. Great to see Cecilie Ludwig as well here, Lizzie, towards the front of the group for the Canyon SRAM team. She finished in that front group yesterday alongside Chiara Consoni, who had a brilliant second place.
She was actually pushing the pace as well up that first climb of Waddington Fell. She was the 5th rider just behind Kate Courtney of FDJ United Suez, and so she looks motivated. She's a Danish rider, of course, very used to the rain, and she races very, very well in these conditions. Despite the real start of the QOM starting in about 2 kilometres climb, actually it's all climbing out of Clitheroe here. There's going to be about 400 metres of slightly flatter road, but it's just all the way up until we hit the top of the climb at 72.9 kilometres to go.
Team of Uno X having a fantastic stage win with Sigrid Hauser in the Tour de France, would have given that team a huge amount of morale in what was arguably the biggest race for women, but now here trying to continue with that momentum. Katrin Allerud riding super aggressively, looking over her shoulder, trying to see where that peloton is, but definitely in an advantageous position to be here in these sorts of conditions. Taking a glance down at that head unit. Doesn't look like she's got any notes on her stem here, Lizzie, something we were talking about yesterday as riders try to come into these races as prepared as they can be.
It totally depends on the rider, I think, Danny. You know, I used to do my prep so well that I knew all of those moments absolutely perfectly. We just see Katrin Ollerud now going through that start of the Emoda Queen of the Mountain, 360 watts at a cadence of nearly 100, speed of 32 whilst going up this climb. She's got 32 seconds back to the chasing peloton as that speed drops a little bit as the road rises up, back up to 30 kilometres an hour, and she is motoring away now.
AG Insurance Soudal still controlling things at the front of the peloton behind as the group has swelled. Riders have got themselves back into this main group after it fractured on Waddington Fell. You can see Katrin Allerud just taking in a big deep breath, just bracing herself for what's to come. You can see the speed difference as the peloton come into the base of the climb, and it's going to be really interesting to see the time gap as we get closer to the top. Tops out with 73 kilometres to go. There's a really steep section, Lizzie, right in the middle to the top half of the climb, where perhaps riders have already done their homework and they know what's coming and they know that they are going to try and attack, because ultimately after the top of this climb it's pretty much all downhill into Whalley, where we've got our intermediate sprint and then a flat run into Blackpool.
That's right, Danny. This is the last opportunity for the riders to break it up on those steep climbs. We've got about 60 kilometres of pretty flat roads before that run into Blackpool, and although they tried on Waddington Fell, they didn't actually manage to really split up the bunch. Now I think Nico Pendle is a little bit harder. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it, Danny, because you of course rode both those climbs on Sunday, and how did you find it compared to the first, or were you just so knackered from Waddington Fell?
I mean, I'm not a professional rider anymore, so anything over 2% I find very, very difficult. But yeah, I think for me, Nico Pendle was the harder of the two climbs. It definitely had more steep sections throughout the climb, which again gives these riders the opportunity to really attack and make a difference. So it's going to be important for Lorena Wiebes to have a little bit of sliding room, albeit on that first climb, again proving how versatile she is as a bike rider. And she said it in the Tour de France as to how she's kind of changed her training technique. She never becomes complacent, even after so many victories, and she gets asked time and time again about pressure, about that she is the favourite when it comes to any sort of reduced bunch sprint in any bike race. The pressure, she said, she puts on herself, But yeah, just testament to the type of character I think that Lorena Wiebes is, that she doesn't sit back on her laurels and she's always looking at ways in which that she can improve as a rider.
She stays hungry as well. She always wants it, which is so impressive. 134 stage wins. She's the second most successful rider of the modern era, with Marianne Vos, of course, being the only rider who has more victories from her than her in the current peloton. And yeah, every single time she wants it, she goes for it, and you can see how delighted she is with those celebrations as she crosses the line. The climb here is really opening up for Katrien Ullerud. In a minute she's going to see exactly what's going to face her, and the peloton just aren't really interested behind, are they? Perhaps it's not steep enough, perhaps they're waiting for those little ramps which are slightly further up. Perhaps they just don't think this is the moment to break the peloton apart.
With 70 kilometres to go, Mika Pendle is still a long way. Oh dear, we are going to have to stop the race. It looks like there's been a problem on the course. You can just see that red flag being waved by Jonathan Day, the event director. That communication will then go back to the director sportifs in the car, which will then be relayed to the riders. So we will bring you all the information that we can as we get it. We're just seeing pictures of UAE Team Limad. This is going to give the riders that have been dropped potentially a chance to get back on.
That information hasn't quite been communicated yet. Oh no, now we can see the riders putting their hands up and indicating that there's going to be a slowdown. And what normally happens is that the bunch will come to where the first rider was, they will all stop, and the time gap back to that front rider will be maintained and re-held once the race starts.
So the race has been stopped here on stage 2 of the Lloyds Tour of Britain Women. We are unknown as to why yet, but we will bring you that information as soon as we get it. But you can see here Alice Towers, former British road race champion, riding for the Great Britain national team here, using this opportunity to take a drink, take some sustenance, riders reaching into their back pockets. It's a chance for them to take on some fuel. They're being told by the regulator to move forward. The whistle's been blown. Katrien Ullerud is here. And Lizzie, this is really tricky. We've seen this happen in races before, but especially when we've got conditions like this, it's the riders are going to get quite cold. We've just been told there's been a motor accident on the course. That's why the riders have been stopped, but we might actually see some of the team cars bring in some rain jackets, some extra clothing for the riders, Lizzie, so they don't get too cold, just stood on the road here.
It really depends how long the riders are going to be on the road, and in these situations it's often very, very hard to tell. We can see AG Insurance, Livlula Jaco and one of the riders, I think that's Marta Jaskolska, heading off for a natural break. They'll use this opportunity. Depending on how long they might be stood still, they will try and get those rain jackets. Of course they're going to be warm from coming up the hill, but as soon as they're standing around in these cold conditions, now we can see half the peloton going off for a nature break now. Perfect opportunity. Kate Courtney as well. Laura Perkins. Now they've just moved to the left-hand side of the road to allow the vehicles, including the ambulance, to pass through. Talking to
Jonathan Day, the event director, just having a chat with Katrien Ullerud as to what's happening. You can hear the emergency vehicles now coming through to assist the accident that has happened, we believe, in or around the course itself. Katrien Ullerud just talking into the radio to her teammates as well, but you can see in the puddles next to her that the rain is still falling. It's going to be really cold up here as well. The riders have been climbing, so that temperature is going to be dropping, and it's important that the riders try and stay as warm as they can. We don't know where the cars are. We presume they're directly behind the riders. The cars, of course, in the order of the general classification. Josie Nelson for the Picnic Personnel team just taking gel. You can see some of the soigneurs have come to give the riders some fuel. Josie Nelson with a brilliant result yesterday, coming in third.
That's actually Jochen Lamard in the black jacket there. He's the mechanic for a very long time mechanic for Canyon SRAM, handing out the bottles to his team. Lotte Kopecky there having a chat with the race director, Jonathan Day. And we heard that the regulator was saying to Katrine Ullerud about possibility of going back to the car if she needed anything while she's waiting on the side of the road. See one of the Movistar riders there putting on her jacket. Cecilia Uttrup Ludwig on the second row just shaking with a little bit of that cold.
Nice to see some of the riders having a little bit of a catch-up. Elena Backstead and Lorena Wiebes. Potentially Lorena Wiebes feeling that a British rider might be getting a little bit more information perhaps. You can see Lorena Wiebes then relaying some information to her teammates. They're looking pretty cold out there.
Well, it's a difficult situation for everybody, isn't it, Danny? Of course, the race organisers have already had one thing to navigate this morning, now a second unexpected event on the road. Challenging situation for everybody involved in all aspects of organisation of this race. Katrine Ullerud managed to get herself a gilet there, a little jacket to try and keep her a bit warmer.
You can just hear over the radio that there's some blankets, I think, being given out to some of the riders. Some riders will feel the cold more than others. Like Sherry Pridham in the background there, the director sportif for the UAE team, Limad. Constant communication between riders, race organisers. That's Imogen Wolf, the British rider for the Visma Lease bike team. Alice Wood here, race director, talking to the regulator about what is going to happen now. We believe there's been a motor accident in and around the course, which has meant that they need emergency vehicles to be able to come through. And we'll bring you the information as soon as we get it. You can just see Cecilia Ludwig with a big sigh. It's a really, really tough situation for the riders, something that no one is in control of course, and it's going to be important, Lizzie, for them to keep their heads on here and actually not be defeated by having to stop for whatever length of time it might be.
And really to not get too cold. We always know in these sorts of races that if you get cold to your bones, we just see Lara Gillespie almost shaking, shivering with the cold there. If you get cold to your bones, it's so difficult to warm back up again. We can see the grass blowing in the wind behind, which when you're already wet, and of course these riders will be absolutely soaked through from riding behind all of the spray of the riders in front of them. But once you're already wet, any little bit of wind on your skin is going to get you really cold. We need to get some jackets there for the human-powered health riders. Cecilia Uttrup Ludwig has cheered up a little bit. Sharon Van Anrooy there, wiping the rain off her face.
race has been neutralised here on stage 2 of the Lloyds Tour of Britain Women. Race director Alice Wood is talking to Lorena Wiebes, the race leader, here as to the plan going forward. She's joined by Caroline Swinkles as well to have a chat with Alice Wood, and we will give you all the information we can as soon as we get it. The race situation was that Katrin Allerud had around 50 seconds ahead of the peloton as she approached the top of Nickapendal.
That was a shot. Sorry, I'm live. Sorry.
Sherry Pridham here up talking to Alice Wood as well. Sherry Pridham, the director sportif for the UAE team, Limad team. And we believe this categorised climb now up to Nickapendal has been cancelled, so there won't be any points available at the top, which is a real shame, Lizzie, because there were so many points on offer today. So as the virtual Queen of the Mountains classification now stands, after that first category climb of the day, Steffi Hamelin now leads with 16 points ahead of Lauren Dixon's 14, Caroline Anderson's 11, Audrey de Keersmaker's 10, Marta Jaskulska's 7. Marta Jaskulska, one of the first riders to attack at the start of stage 2. We're just going to bring you highlights from today's stage as we wait for the race to be underway again. This was the rollout from Clitheroe this morning. 4 of the Fenix Premier Tech riders were actually shelled out of the back. The next attack came from Katrin Allerud. That was the start of the second Queensland, 38 seconds down. You can see this is where the race was neutralised. This is where the riders are now because of a motor accident that's happened on the roads, affecting the route. And we will bring you live race coverage as soon as we get it. But we've heard that that second category climb, Nickapendal climb, the first category climb, will be now cancelled, so there won't be any points at the top of Nickapendal. A real shame, but perhaps not for Steffi Hamelin, who will take that jersey at the end of today's stage. The Queen of the Mountains jersey, that blue jersey, currently on the shoulders of Audrey de Keersmaker, who took 10 points on yesterday's stage. We have the green race leaders jersey, the red points jersey, and the best young riders jersey. We have a combativity award every day that went to Audrey de Keersmaker yesterday. This is for the rider who displays the most courageous and attacking display of riding. That's every day, but there will also be a most combative rider at the end of the 5 days of racing. We'll have best overall team, which is the accumulation of the top 3 riders of each team, and we will also have a best British rider. A lot of unpredictable weather conditions out there today, but you can see that the rain is still pouring as we get these nice helicopter shots over some beautiful scenery, and how the riders have managed to get some extra layers, Lizzie, to try and stay as warm as they possibly can up here as we are nearly at the top of Nickapendal.
About halfway up, aren't we? Joe Tindley is only just managing to get a jacket on now. Oh, they must be pretty freezing behind. Now, Nickapendal is actually a landmark in British history, because I don't know if you know, Danny, it was the site of one of the most famous witch trials back in 1612. 12 people were accused of witchcraft. Just 1 person was acquitted. 10 of them were hanged, and 1 died in prison. And the trials are actually really, really well documented thanks to a surviving account back from 1612. So, yeah, the riders are going to hope they're not waiting around here for too long before they get accused of witchcraft.
I'm loving all your facts, Lizzie.
Just wait till I get started on Lancashire's culinary delights, because we have got a lot of culinary delights on offer in Lancashire. So see Alice Wood there. Just going over to talk to Sherry Pridham the director of UAE Team BMAD.
We're just hearing from Danny Christmas, the race director of AG Insurance Sudal, who says the race will be neutralised until the bottom of the descent, but that there's currently no update as to when the race will start again. This is Megan Chard, the DS for the Uno X Mobility team as well, on the left-hand side of the screen. Everyone looking pretty relaxed, pretty calm, ultimately nothing that they can do, out of their control, just waiting to hear from the race organisers, who of course will be in communication with the emergency services, because safety is key. So, as I just mentioned, it sounds like the race will be neutralised until the bottom of the descent. They will then stop the race again. They will be given the gaps that they had on the road beforehand. So Katrin Allerud will be given the gap that she had as the solo leader on the road, and then the race will start again. Some little dance moves from the riders, trying to keep as warm as they can. I mean, who had the blankets in the car? That's brilliant.
It's the kind of thing that as a British rider, as a British driver, sorry, always in the back of your car, you've got blankets, you've got a shovel. Even in summer in Lancashire, you never know what's quite coming. Just here in the background, Letizia Borghese talking to the moto regulator in her Italian accent, asking what's going to be going on. Changes the race, because we were going to have that super steep descent down from Nika Pendle. Of course, the most important thing is that everybody is safe in the road traffic accident, that the riders' safety is assured as well. But it will certainly change the descent, change the shape of the race. So we've got about 5 or 6 kilometres from where the race is restarted until we hit the intermediate sprint point in Whalley. We're going to be descending again, slightly more gently this time. We're going to be descending down to there. So it could be hectic for that intermediate sprint, where of course we've got not only sprint points available, but 3, 2 and 1 bonus seconds on the line. And we saw how motivated those GC candidates were to get those seconds yesterday.
Lots of people here trying to make the right decisions for the riders. But as you said, Lizzie, everyone is involved as to trying to do what's right by the riders, safety of the riders, of course, as well. The descent will be ridden in a neutral fashion, but then we'll have only around 3.5 kilometres, Lizzie, before we hit then a short, steep descent into that intermediate sprint. And because the race has or will be neutralised after this, it means we are going to have a bigger group for sure coming into that intermediate sprint, because we anticipated fireworks at the top of Nika Pendle. That will now not happen. So it could be an intermediate sprint featuring different types of riders. Those GC riders, again, I think will try and get involved like we saw yesterday.
It's a tricky run into it as well. I mean, it looks like the race is going to be restarted at around 71 kilometres to go, just as we come off the descent from Nika Pendle and we head into the little billet village of Sabden. I think that's where the race will be restarted. And like you say, Danny, it's flatter, but it's still descending. And then we've got a very tricky right-left chicane as we come onto a main road. We've got a little traffic island to negotiate. We come straight off it. And then as we descend, we've got 1 kilometre of fast descent into Whalley, a sharp 90-degree right-hand turn, and 200 metres, only 200 metres from that right-hand turn to the intermediate sprint point. So the riders are going to have to be really on it coming into that right-left chicane before the descent, before that final 200 metres, if they want to take the full bonus seconds there. It's all about positioning. It needs to be done 2 or 3k out from that sprint, really. Going to be like a full lead out, really, to get those seconds.
So this is the result of the Amoda Queen of the Mountains at the top of Waddington Fell, our first categorised climb of the day. That was won by Steffi Haviland, who took 10 points ahead of Lauren Dixon, Caroline Anderson, Marta Jaskulska, Kate Courtney, Kim Lacourt, Cecily Utchup-Ludwig, Eleanor Baxter, Leanna Lippert and Alberta Greve, who was our first attacker of the day. Very grizzly, wet, soggy, cold conditions for the riders. Made worse, unfortunately, by the neutralised pause that we've had to the race today, stage 2 of the Lloyds Tour of Britain Women, because of an accident that's happened on the roads as we're heading towards Blackpool. This second climb will now be neutralised, as will the descent off the top of Nickapendal, which was a very fast technical descent. Could have had an impact on the race, especially because we're heading towards our intermediate sprint, which a lot of the GC riders will have their eye on, with the opportunity to take 3, 2 and 1 seconds. It also comes with points, 10, 7, 5, 3 and 1 points on offer for that points classification. Points classification headed up by Lorena Wiebes, who took the stage victory yesterday, being worn by Katrin Allerud. That green leaders jersey trumping the red points jersey. Our virtual Queen of the Mountains classification is Steffi Haviland ahead of Lauren Dixon and Caroline Anderson. Because of that second climb being neutralised, that means the Queen of the Mountains jersey will be on the shoulders of Steffi Haviland for the team of SD Works Pro Time at the end of stage 2. So she will be wearing that for stage 3. Mould to the Great Orme tomorrow, 104.7 kilometres, just shy of 2,000 metres elevation. The real GC test with our first and only summit finish of the race. A really, really important day for the riders, and perhaps might have an impact on how the rest of today's stage, especially now we've got this neutralised Nickapendal, will pan out. You can see Alice Wood just explaining to some of the riders, one of the High-Tech Products Fluid Control riders here, as to what's going to happen. Chiara Consoni talking to Gasparini, compatriot. So unfortunately we've got another update to bring you. The race will now be neutralised all the way to that intermediate sprint. The intermediate sprint will not be contested. The race will then be restarted, and we will have a race into Blackpool, so that is really unfortunate.
Wow, what a change to the shape of the race there, Danny. That really shakes up everything that we thought was on offer about that first sort of half of this race, really. And of course, no bonus seconds for the riders available now, because there was a potential to sort of almost come level with Wiebes before she was potentially going to take another 10 seconds on the line. And those bonus seconds are out the window now. The race will restart from Worley, where the intermediate sprint point was due to be.
So this is the general classification after our first stage, from Cockermouth to Cockermouth. Lorena Wiebes taking the win ahead of Chiara Consoni, Caroline Swinkles, Josie Nelson, Misha Bredevold, Kim Lacourt, of course, up there on GC because of those intermediate seconds that she took on yesterday's stage. Quinty Ton, Caroline Anderson, Letizia Borghese and Leanna Lippert are your top 10 on general classification. So now, without those intermediate sprint points, the seconds, the 3, 2 and 1 seconds that were on offer, it will just be that finish line where we'll have the bonuses, the time bonuses on the line, 10, 6 and 4 seconds on the line for the stage winner every day. Eleanor Baxter just looking like she's having a nice little crispy rice cake here. Some of the Italians just having a little joke between themselves as well. You can see in the background is that Kate Courtney just jumping up and down trying to keep warm. We've had a few images from Danny Christmas with riders jumping in the team car. She's probably got the heating blasting for those riders.
That's Leia Carinier there, who's doing a dance behind the French rider for FDJ United Sewers, desperately trying to keep herself warm. Well, there's one of two options now, isn't there really, Danny? Either the riders are going to just sit up and say, whatever, we'll just ride it in to a sprint in Blackpool, or they're going to go hell for leather and try and split things up in potential crosswinds. We're not really sure if the wind is strong enough to split the bunch, but it is certainly coming directly across the riders, particularly in the last sort of 40 to 20 kilometres of the race. There's a real chance to do something where the road's a little bit more exposed up to their right-hand side, as well as we sort of head around Preston and then turn left back towards Lytham and up the coast into Blackpool. So we'll see once the riders restart what they want to do. But sometimes when you've had a race pause like this, you are just so cold that you are dying to make something happen to try and warm yourself back up again.
The riders will definitely be very keen to warm themselves up after this neutralised pause of the race. We've just been told there's a couple of minutes to the start. Again, however, we will have a neutralised section all the way into that intermediate sprint point that comes with 66 kilometres to go, and then a flat, pretty much totally flat run in to Blackpool. A little bit of undulation between the sprint point and around 45 kilometres to go, but from 45 kilometres to go it's pretty much flat all the way down to the infamous coast of Blackpool. I've actually never been to Blackpool Pleasure Beach. Lizzie, have you?
I've never been, but I would actually love to go. It's a famous holiday destination, of course. I'd like to go there and ride a donkey, get myself an ice cream, and I am a real child at heart. I absolutely love candy floss. And of course, I'd probably go to one of the local pubs and get myself a Lancashire hot pot.
93.1 to go and joined at 88 kilometres to go. Well, here we go then. It looks like the riders are getting themselves ready, still in their big jackets, some of them with fleeces on, but with smiles on their face, and that's the main thing. You can see Nicola Pendle looms in the distance. They are, of course, on the climb at the moment. Petra Stiasny is that rider from Human Powered Health, just at the back of the peloton, but it will be neutralised, so it gives the riders an opportunity to warm up without racing. Alice Towers on the right-hand side with that pink helmet rides for professional team EF Education Oatley, former national champion. Katrin Allerud will be given her time ahead of the peloton once the race proper begins. That will start at 66 kilometres to go. Eleanor Baxter really taken that sort of road captain role, Lizzie, of the whole peloton. We saw it yesterday, we've seen it at the start today. Just trying to keep the peloton as safe as possible as they go past the emergency services vehicles. And it does, it will. It's going to change the dynamic of the race. You can see now Lorena Wiebes is not in, well, the green leader's jersey is hidden, but Lorena Wiebes is the SD Works Pro Time rider at the front of the peloton, as they will now ride in a neutralised fashion until the race starts again. Oh, the rider's legs must be really hurting, Lizzie.
I was thinking the same. You know, the absolute worst thing in cycling is when you have a cafe stop, you go again, and your legs are absolutely burning, and they're just not just starting anywhere. They're starting up the steepest climb of today's race, and also the longest part of the steepest climb of today's race. Is that Shirin Van Amroy at the back, who's not having a nice time on these slopes after having had about 20 or 30 minutes of just stood still there. All that lactic acid just builds up. You've got to go again, and it is super painful. See Zoe Backstead there, the black Canyon Tram jacket and the Red Bull helmet. Just chatting to number 72, Amandine Foutinet of AG Insurance.
just hear into Radio Tour there, just confirming that there will be no points at the top of the Queen of the Mountains. There will be no points or seconds through that intermediate sprint, just because of how close that proximity is to this pause and the race restarting again. So we are going to have a 66-kilometre flat race into Blackpool today. And I think it's going to be really hard to see past Lorena Wiebes now, especially with how this has now evolved because of the pause that we've had.
It's going to be interesting to see what the peloton do about Katrien Ullerud. She's going to be given those 45 seconds back at the sprint point in Wally. And are they going to be interested in catching her? That's what I'm curious to see. She is a strong rider. She's a very good time trialist. And although we can't look past Lorena Wiebes, I think it's interesting to see what the dynamic of the peloton is going to be after this pause, after an unusual situation. The sheep on the road, of course, find that everywhere in this part of the UK. So the Team Soigneurs in the feed zone on the side of this categorised climb here, where there will be no longer any points, as of course the climb is neutralised. Some of the riders will be pretty relieved that they get to go up this climb neutralised. The Movistar riders just having a chat. They can almost stop to take their snack from the Soigneur, take a few crisps.
Yeah, I'll have a crisp, thanks.
Sheep will mop up the rest of it.
Just sharing it out between the team. So that is the 500 metres to go of what would have been the second categorised climb of the day, the first category climb. Orbiani just stuffing her face with crisps there. I love to see it. Liana Lippert as well. Look, just hiding her face. No, we didn't eat the crisps. Oh, I love it. A bit of humanity. Who wouldn't have some crisps in this neutralised section? I definitely would. We saw Alison Jackson taking a burger, didn't we? On 112.
I actually followed Alison Jackson for that time trial around on the fourth stage of the Tour de France Femmes, and I asked her, what's on the menu today? Are you going to try and take a cheeseburger? And she said no, she's just got to go full gas to try and even get to the finish within the time cut. So I'm glad to hear that she managed to get that cheeseburger that she was after on Mont Ventoux. Just panning there towards Longridge Fell, which marks the southern edge of the border of the Forest of Bowland.
And for once, the riders will have the opportunity to take in the scenery, albeit a bit of a grisly scene out there for the riders today. But if the race wasn't neutralised, there definitely would have been that opportunity for them to take a little look around and take in the sights. And that was something that was, I guess, a little bit of a shame. Lizzie, we got to travel all over the world to race our bikes, but it was only really in the pre-race rides that we were able to appreciate where we were, because when you're in the thick of the bike race, you're not really looking around you, are you?
I mean, I always used to try just to, you know, have one or two just split seconds to take a glimpse to the side of me and look, God, touch the flag there. Or is that the Luxembourg flag? I think that's the Dutch flag. Oh, it's very light blue. Look at the low cadence of the riders going up this climb as well, because it's so steep and because they're going slowly. You know, they don't have any more gears left, and that really shows you quite how steep the climb is. As we're just hitting the final few 100 metres, I think, of the climb. And a lovely sign there for Flora Perkins, of course, the British rider that we saw attacking yesterday. She rides past on the right-hand side.
So nice for the British riders to have friends, family, support on the side of the road. That's the top of the QOM of Mika Pendle. And now we're going to have this fast descent albeit a neutralised one, but still with riders having to take care. They'll still be going pretty quickly, but we're going to hear a lot of screeches of brakes, I think, especially if that lead car doesn't pick up the pace any more than what it was on that climb itself.
You can see just how fast this would have been to descend in the race, Danny. A couple of twists and turns, and then just after the riders go over this brow, it was absolutely straight down into the village of Waddington itself. It's a much harder climb actually from the side of Waddington than it is from the side that we did, which is really saying something.
I remember actually thinking the same, Lizzie, when I rode the route on Sunday, how quick this descent was going to be. Of course, when I rode it, the roads were open. Closed roads for the riders today. We just passed a sign of 14% here, so really steep but really straight. So the riders would have hit over 80, 90 kilometres an hour down here. Not now, the race has been neutralised. And then we'll have that restart. And of course, Lizzie, the onus, the responsibility is on SE Works Pro Time now. Yesterday we were talking about no team really having the responsibility. Yes, Lorena Wiebes is the best sprinter in the world in the field, so it puts a little bit more pressure on the team of SE Works to control. However, now she is the race leader. She is the fastest sprinter. This is a sprint stage. It is on them now to control this bike race.
It is, and it's going to be interesting to see how the dynamic falls between the other teams, if they try and get up the road, if they settle for a sprint. I mean, we had riders who were more pure sprinters, like Clara Caponi from Little Trek, who's won here at the Tour of Britain. She took the leader's jersey in 2022. She didn't make it over the climbs yesterday. She lost 8 minutes and 38 seconds, and it was Fleur Moores that Little Trek rode for in the sprint in the finish, who, of course, is actually in the young riders jersey now. She was 11th in the general classification, 10th across the line, I believe. And so it'll be interesting to see what riders, what teams like Little Trek do, because they do have an opportunity for a good sprinter, but can they beat Lorena Wiebes? I don't think they can. I think something would have to go wrong for Lorena Wiebes for her to lose a sprint, especially such a pure sprint like we had in Blackpool today. There's 9.5 kilometres of very straight running along the promenade. Absolutely no obstacles. But like you're saying, Danny, yesterday, actually, when we've got these straight, flat run-ins, they can be so much more hectic, so much more complicated, and so much more difficult to string the bunch out.
Five-kilometre rule stands today for the riders, so if there are any incidents, accidents, mechanicals that happen in the last 5 kilometres, the riders that are affected will be given the same time as the group that they were in at the time. This is the only stage with the 5-kilometre rule. Yesterday was the 3-kilometre rule. Tomorrow that rule doesn't apply because it's an uphill finish, so the times are taken on the line. Stage 4 and 5 will then be the 3-kilometre rule again. All the time limits of all of the stages here at the Lloyds Tour of Britain Women are 15%. So every rider has to finish within 15% of the leader to start the next day. Just running down the descent into Worley, where the intermediate sprint is. Won't be contested, but that's where the race will be started again, where Katrin Allerud will be given her time that she had when the race was stopped, when it was neutralised.
Alice Wood really being thrown in the deep end as a director. Two things that really difficult to deal with, and it feels like she's dealt with them in very smooth way. It's difficult circumstances to change the route of a race, to neutralise a race, to stop it and restart it. And although we've missed some of the key points of racing, it's definitely the safest option for everybody involved in and around the bike race. So sitting around has got me really hungry, Danny. I'm thinking I'm Thinking about those Lancashire butter pies as well. Really, really cool dish, traditionally from Lancashire, actually originating in the Catholic community, who abstained from eating meat on Fridays, which were the holy days. And it's a simple but really unctuous dish. Sliced potatoes, onion and layers of butter encased in a short crust pastry. Don't mind if I do.
Easy, you're making me very hungry. It was what, Cumberland sausages yesterday, butter pies today. I'm excited to see what we've got for the rest of this tour.
Don't get me started on Lancashire cheese. I'm sure you're aware of the crumbly Lancashire, Danny. Come on, everybody's heard of the crumbly Lancashire. The young cow's milk cheese with just 4 to 8 weeks of aging. But there are actually 3 cheeses from the local area named after the county itself. Creamy Lancashire, crumbly Lancashire, and of course, tasty Lancashire.
Love it. Yeah, I love a bit of cheese with a little bit of wine. Not going to lie, Lizzie. But yeah, for these riders, they would have had the chance to have a little bit of food. We've seen some of the riders nabbing a few crisps from the Swan Years on the side of the road, Aubrey Anique and Leanna Lippert, which I'm sure they'll be asked about at the end of today's stage. It's been relentless rain from the start so far. You can see raindrops still falling on the camera lens. The roads completely soaking wet, but thankfully, I guess for the riders, that descent was neutralised before the intermediate sprint, and then we're going to have a little bit more of a straightforward run into that sprint, albeit it could be a messy one, as you were alluding to, Lizzie, because actually when it is less technical, it can be quite chaotic. You can get that washing machine effect, more riders featuring, and because we now do have that flat run into the line, it is going to mean that more sprinters are present. Yesterday we only had 32 riders come into the line. Only a couple of the key pure sprinters, I think it's fair to say, were there and present. Lorena Wiebes showing us her versatility yet again. Chiara Consoni had a brilliant day, as did Josie Nelson. Quite a technical run into the finish yesterday into Clitheroe versus today. We've got a little kind of chicane where the road bears gently to the left and runs straight to the line with around 700 metres to go, but it's a pretty wide road. I was having a look at it at Velo Viewer, which all of the riders would have done before today. Different to yesterday, because we had the loop from Cockermouth to Cockermouth. They would have had more chance to recce the route to see the finish, but today probably relying mostly on Google Maps and Velo Viewer and platforms like this that the riders use now to research the route.
Yes, Danny, I mean, all the riders have Velo Viewer available to them. Potentially not the 5 smaller continental teams that we have here. They might actually be having to sort of create their own routes and, you know, work out where everything is. But really, there are so many resources to be able to see what is coming in finishes like what we've got in Blackpool today. And it really is uncomplicated. Ones that riders will have wanted to recce will be tomorrow's finish up the Croydon Peninsula, up to the hilltop finish on the Great Orme. That's going to be a really interesting finish tomorrow. Super tight entry into the last few kilometres, 2.5 kilometre climb up the Great Orme, where we think the GC race is going to kick off. We just see some of the riders there. One of the riders from Hansling Alba Development Team, still with a big rain jacket on. Looks like one of the rain jackets from one of the team staff she's got on there. Just trying to keep warm as the riders head very slowly towards Worley, where the race will be restarted in a few kilometres' time.
Neil Campbell, the rider for the Smurfit West Rock cycling team. Just on the left-hand side of the picture, Trinidad and Tobago rider. Not many race days this year for Tennille Campbell, who was formerly part of the World Tour team.
Green Edge.
Absolutely, yeah. And she is actually a very, very fast sprinter in her own right, Lizzie. But perhaps doesn't have the team around her to put her in position, albeit she'll try and do all that she can to surf the wheels and put herself in a good spot if it does come down to a bunch sprint here today in Blackpool.
Well, I heard her talking on social media last night, Danny, saying just how much she felt the level had risen in the World Tour peloton over the past few years. Of course, she was a member of that Orica Green Edge squad, which at the time was named Bike Exchange. She joined them in 2021. She was with them through to the end of 2024 when they were named Liv Alula Jayco, as they are now at this point, of course, before moving over to a continental team, Smurfit Westrock, where she is now, and she's riding with us in this Tour of Britain on those Ribble bikes, of course, as we ride through the Ribble Valley. Just on the left of the screen there, wearing that national champions jersey of Trinidad and Tobago.
If you're just joining us today for the Lloyds Tour of Britain Women on stage 2, just to make you aware, the race is currently neutralised. We had a road traffic accident which happened ahead of the convoy, which has led to the neutralisation of the race. As a result, the second Queen of the Mountain, Nick Pendle, has been cancelled, as has the intermediate sprint. The organisers would like to thank the teams, riders, police and local authorities for their assistance and cooperation during the disruption to the race. You can see here the race organisers still trying to keep the riders as safe as they can possibly be here, just pointing out a narrowing in the road as we head towards that intermediate sprint. That comes with 66 kilometres to go. The riders will then stop again. Katrin Allerud, who was ahead of the race, will be given the time gap that she had before the race was neutralised, and we'll head down to Blackpool for what we believe will be a bunch kick.
1 kilometre to go down into Whalley here. This was that tight right-left that I was talking about before, which of course the riders are now taking neutralised, and we can see there 1 kilometre to go to the intermediate sprint. The riders are going to just head down this hill into the town of Whalley, where they will stop on the line. Katrin Ullerud will be sent off, the time gaps will be re-established, and the race will be restarted for the final 60 kilometres or so. Final 65 kilometres back into Blackpool. 66 kilometres exactly, Danny Rowe just pointed out to me there.
It's only around an hour and a half of racing for the riders. They'll be desperate to warm up after that neutralisation, where we saw some riders getting into the team cars, some riders taking staff's clothing to try and keep as warm as they possibly could be. Some riders will be affected more than others, and we expect a pretty quick restart to this race. Katrin Allerud's going to have a really tough job on her hands in this final 66.
But the good thing for her here is, Danny, is that she has had a little bit of time to shake off those cafe legs, to ride out that lactic acid and to start again. If the race had just started from the point that we were on Nick Pendle, she would have almost certainly got caught very quickly, whereas having that chance to ride off those cafe legs will be really, really much appreciated for her and give her a better chance. But like you say, it'll be interesting to see what happens in the peloton, if they want to warm up, if they're not interested, and who's going to ride.
You just see the riders now coming to a stop at this intermediate sprint with 66 kilometres to go. We will see Katrin Allerud able to start and establish that gap that she had when the race was neutralised. Hopefully this won't be for too long. The riders have had a chance to just turn their legs somewhat, albeit at pretty slow pace. You can see Katrin Allerud coming through now.
And riders that put those extra jackets on and extra layers are on are just shedding them quickly. before the race starts again. Alderwood, of course, cleaning her glasses. That's one of the worst things in this weather, isn't it, Danny? You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. If you've got them on, they steam up, you can't see anything, and if you've got them off, your eyes fill with grit and you can't see anything either. So it's a really difficult conditions for the riders to be in. Kate Courtney on the left-hand side there, cold, jumping up and down. Magnaldi behind, just stripping off a few layers.
So we've just been told the race will restart in 4 minutes' time. So riders are going to get a little bit chilly again here. Brianna Marcus is the rider here from Little Trek. She was aggressive in stage 1 between Cockermouth and Cockermouth, but you can see just how cold she is. Her lips are almost turning blue here as she's trying to rub her legs, tap her legs to try and keep those muscles firing. Alongside her, Clara Caponi, who was dropped on yesterday's stage, but I'm sure will have that fight to try and do something today. Fleur Moores was there. She was 10th on the stage for Little Trek, but Clara Caponi, the more pure sprinter, finished 8 minutes and 38 seconds down yesterday. It's going to be all about that control, though, from SD Works Pro Time.
What a difference in the clothing of those riders there. You've got that very lean sort of climber type in Rhiannon Marcus, covered in clothes. And then you've got the really strong sprinter of Clara Caponi, no arm warmers on. Dark sunglasses, ready to roll, in a bar. She certainly looks ready for that sprint without any arm warmers on. She's ready to take it on, I think. Clara Caponi had podium placings on stage 1 and 2 in the 2021 edition of this race, and then she was 3rd on GC there. She won the opening stage of the 2022 edition, taking the leader's jersey, of course, with it. And the end of that race was brilliant because it was her teammate, Grace Brown, who was in the leader's jersey in the final stage on the same time as Elisa Longo Borghini. And it was Elisa Longo Borghini who ended up taking the win in that edition by getting those very final bonus seconds on the final sprint into Oxford.
I remember actually after that stage race, it was brilliant to hear from Elisa Longo Borghini, who used to talk about how she sprinted like a stone, didn't have any of that explosivity, but it was something that she really worked on. And I mean, that really came to fruition for her in that tour, winning ahead of Grace Brown, of course, with only 1 second, but coming down to the wire, coming down to those bonus seconds on the line, just shows how close these stage races can be. And we saw that in the Tour de France, didn't we, where it really did come down to the wire. We've seen it in the past where, you know, some of the most iconic epic climbs, and yet at the back end of the stage races it can come down to seconds. So you really can't become complacent. You really do need to look for every single opportunity that you can to take seconds. We saw that with the likes of Kim LaCourte yesterday, Caroline Swinkles, who have clearly got those ambitions for GC in this year's edition.
Well, it was brains and brawn for Elisa Longo Borghini on that stage of the 2022 race, because of course the FDJ United Suez team, they didn't think that Longo Borghini was going to be able to get those seconds. They put Clara Caponi into the position of trying to take the stage win on that stage, and they just didn't anticipate that Elisa Longo Borghini would be able to be up there. Now Trek Segafredo, as they were at the time, they drilled it through a very technical passage into the finish in Oxford, and they got those seconds and won the race right on the line, much to Grace Brown's surprise and disappointment. Catherine Alderwood there with those clear lenses. Off she goes.
Katrin Alerud then from the Uno X Mobility team will be given the time that she established before the race was neutralised here. So she's going to try and find her rhythm, try and measure that effort, try and sustain the gap that she'd opened up previously on Nika Pendle straight into the drops, as the peloton will now be getting ready for their race start. 66 kilometres to go here in the intermediate sprint. We believe it was around 50 seconds, the gap between Katrin Alerud and the peloton itself. Gonna have a fast, flat run to Blackpool, where the stage winner of stage 2 will be decided. And away we go now, being led off by the team of Little Trek. It's Brianna Marcus. She finished 4th in this race last year, and she will be one of the GC riders for the team of Little Trek. A couple of the riders not fazed by this restart. Petra Stiasny losing over 24 minutes yesterday. Would definitely prefer warmer climates here and a few more climbs as well.
I've got a few little lumps in the next 15 kilometres, Danny, but it really is pretty flat. We've only got 300 metres of climbing in the next 15 kilometres, and then it really is pan flat and downhill for the last 35 into Blackpool. Katrine Ullerud just pushing the pace, using these climbs to get as much of a gap and hold that gap back to the peloton as well as she possibly can. She will definitely be very motivated. Will the peloton be behind? I am very curious to see.
Katrin Alerud trying to attack all of the slight bits of gradient that she's got left in the next 15 kilometres or so before that pan flat running, and you can see a little bit more speed coming into this peloton now. Katrin Alerud is just trying to focus on her own effort here, and it will be those cafe legs that the riders will feel after that stop, that pause again.
Look at all these doggies by the side of the road, Danny. They've all come out to say hello.
As long as they're on leads, Lizzie, I don't mind.
There's definitely a little bit of pace in the peloton, isn't there? I think there's some cold riders in there just wanting to hold some kind of speed and get some warmth back in their bodies.
Really nice shot of Katrin Alerud here in, I think, the biggest gear it looks like, in that big chainring at the front, the smallest cog on the back. So riding at a really decent speed here. Looks really solid on the bike as well. This has been a grisly day out for the riders so far. We're still around an hour and a half of racing left. We expect a bunch sprint. Peloton don't look too phased currently. One rider up the road, easy to control. Still 66 kilometres to go. We talk about this 1 minute per 10 kilometres of racing left as a rule of thumb on a flat piece of road with an established chase behind as the gap that a rider needs to hold on into the finish, Lizzie. So for now, the peloton aren't too worried about Katrin Alerud and the gap that she's holding.
No stress at all. And I think that rule has really, it really depends who you've got up front, what you've got up front, whether it's a solo rider, whether it's a group that are working cohesively or not. And I think it's quite interesting because we've seen before in the women's pelotons, the gap has gone out by minutes that we didn't used to see really when the teams couldn't control the race in the same way. And sometimes we say, you know, 10 seconds per 10 kilometres, and actually sometimes it's we've seen an attack here from Livalula Jaco again, and being chased down behind from Phoenix Premier Tech with Movistar on their wheel.
Here we go then, some attacks from the peloton. It's Liv Alula Jaco. They were incredibly aggressive yesterday with Caroline Anderson and Quinty Ton. Try and see who this rider is. I think it's Quinty Ton. Oh, Josie Talbot, we're being shown with the graphic on the screen here. But the other teams, Phoenix Premier Tech, are very wise to this move.
Is that Martha Troyan behind her? I think it might be. It's difficult to tell.
this is what starts the attacks. It only takes one rider, and then we get counter move after counter move. That elastic can then split. So for the riders, for the teams, it's really important to have strength in numbers, to have representation in the top 10 riders, to have that ability, Lizzie, to be able to keep reacting, and not just one rider, but to have multiple riders there to have that support and representation.
Exactly that, Danny. You want to be able to counter, and when it comes back, you want to be able to counter-attack again and again and again. You need to have one rider there making the move. You need to have another rider ready. Ideally, you need to have 3 riders so that they can, you know, rest as they alternate. But there are a lot of teams here that are really wanting to not make it easy for SD Works. They are wanting to get something out of this race. This 15-kilometre section after we've headed out from that sprint point in Worley is one of the best opportunities. There are some lumps and bumps here. We might have crosswinds later on, but we are not sure whether the strength of the wind will allow it. We will see as we come around Preston out of Broughton with about 40 kilometres to go. But for now, Katrina Ullerud is holding her gap nicely. It would be great if we could see the power from her live data, wouldn't it?
It would, Lizzie. One thing's for sure. Katrina Ullerud will be warming up now, doing all of this work by herself versus a peloton who, of course, are sharing that workload. She knows she has to attack the inclines. That's where the differences can be made. That's where her strengths lie, her attributes as a rider. A very, very strong climber, also a very strong time trialist as well, which really does lend itself to such a long-range attack like Katrina Ullerud has got now. But her teammate did it. Pfeiffer Georgie now, though, on the attack for Picnic Poster now. And Pfeiffer Georgie, yesterday, Lizzie, set things up perfectly for her teammate in Josie Nelson. And the elastic looks like it is snapping. But we've got a few riders just trying to bridge across. AG Insurance Sudawa there. Liverlula Jaco again are here and present.
Yeah, Pfeiffer Georgie looking in really good form after a difficult couple of years with injuries, but she's come into the Tour of Britain Hungary. She was on the attack yesterday. She couldn't get away, and she did a perfect lead out for her teammate Josie Nelson, who crossed the line in 3rd place behind Lorena Wiebes and Chiara Consoni. Femke Heritzer on the right-hand side, just struggling a little bit at the back of the peloton for SD Works as we see Katrina Ullerud take this sharp right-hand turn across the bridge. Back over the River Ribble, just ahead of the confluence of the rivers Ribble, Calder and Hodder. Danny?
Katrina Ullerud being able to take her own lines through these sweeping descents, the peloton behind, pretty compact. A couple of riders just losing a little bit of a distance on the back of the peloton as they meander their way through and over the river. 60.7 kilometres to go here on the way to Blackpool.
You know what, Danny, this is impressive because the bunch is shifting behind, and Katrina Ullerud is holding this gap despite that really high speed in the bunch behind.
Absolutely, I think she would have taken a little bit of motivation, morale from her teammate Sigrid Hausset, who had a 113-kilometre solo breakaway victory in stage 3 of the Tour de France. So she knows it's possible. It's going to be tough, but she is riding really strongly here.
British-made Morgan car on the left-hand side there, from my hometown of Malvern, actually. Back to the peloton, and things are splitting apart, aren't they?
They are, and it's nice to see some live data from Velon, presented by Elixir, one of the partners of British cycling here. The power of Pfeiffer Georgie, and there has been a split, so it looks like around 10 riders have just split off the front. It's Movistar who are chasing. We've got Julia Kopecky here. We've got Caroline Anderson. A couple of representatives from the team of SD Works Pro Time. No Lorena Wiebes by the looks of things. She'll just be able to follow behind, having that representation in the front group. Liverlula Jaco, really impressive yet again here on stage 2 with multiple attacks, really again trying to split that elastic. But Looks like Shirin Van Amroy just sat a couple of wheels back too as it comes back together again. And if the pace drops, that gives that opportunity from someone to launch from behind, find that gap. But the pace being set here, Quinty Ton, Lorena Jaco rider at the front, setting a blistering pace. But Lizzie, she needs to look around because she's just towing this peloton currently.
She is dragging them. Now, what you want to do, if you want to have a gap, you want to go hard when you've got a gap to the riders behind you. But if you've got all of the riders on your wheel, then they are just benefiting from that work that you've been doing. You saw Quinty Ton from Liverlula Jaco there pull off, and it is Julia Kopechki, the rider that was working so hard yesterday, off, who came through to the front. And back to Katrin Ullerud now, dropped down to 42 seconds, so 10 seconds off that gap with those attacks and those increases of speed in the peloton behind.
Nice to see the sheep back on stage 2.
I think we're going to see plenty more of those, Danny, don't you worry.
Especially when we get to Wales, Lizzie. But yeah, Katrin Ullerud, you can see, is just losing a little bit of time, especially under the pressure of the acceleration from Quinty Ton. Just taking a look around her shoulder to see where they are. You can see the motorbikes now coming through as well. She wouldn't have ever had a car behind her. You need to establish a gap of over a minute for that race car, that team car, to be able to be brought forward. We discussed it yesterday, but the race here in the Lloyds Tour Britain Women mean that the teams only get one race car in the convoy, which is different to other races where they'll be able to have 2 race cars. So really needing to make that decision as to whether they follow a breakaway if that does become established and there is a gap of over a minute, or actually if they stay behind the peloton. But Lizzie, as you were mentioning yesterday, it can be really hard for the race cars to pass a peloton, especially if they're all fighting for position and using that entirety of the road.
Especially on these narrow roads. And look, it's Liverlula Jaco again, who are trying to force the gap, but they are really struggling. Julia Kopechki behind, one of the UAE riders behind her. Then that is FDJ United Suez. Then that is Fleur Moores from Little Trek behind with the red helmet. One of the riders from Visma Lease bike with the yellow helmet just behind her. And look at all these people and doggies who have been out in the rain all day.
So the gap has halved for Katrin Ullerud, who started off when we had that restart with 66 kilometres to go with a gap of 50 seconds. It's now down to 26 back to the peloton. .26 seconds we are being shown between Katrin Ullerud and the peloton. We've seen some action behind. We've got a problem here from one of the Continental team riders. It was one of the Hansling Alba Development Road team.
And that's
also Jo Tinley, Lizzie, you're right, for the Smurfit Westrock cycling team. She was one of the first protagonists. Lauren Dixon, though, for the FDJ United Suez team, is on the attack. Lauren Dixon, the British rider, coming back from that collarbone break that she sustained in the Giro around 8 or so weeks ago. She is back in the UK. She means business. She's one of the FDJ Suez general classification leaders alongside Kate Courtney, who's come into the road wanting to compete with a big target on the LA Olympic Games in 2028. But this is Lauren Dixon, and a fabulous move here, Lizzie.
That was a perfectly timed move from Lauren Dixon. A little dip and then a big rise out of Hurst Green, and she got that gap, she got that jump on the peloton. She did not bring anybody with her. Like we were saying before, she didn't drag the peloton, but she does need some company. And you can see the peloton has really increased the speed behind. They are trying to chase her down. They do not want to let Lauren Dixon up the road. The whole peloton knows how strong she is.
Katrin Ullerud will have communication in her ear that Lauren Dixon is on her way and coming across pretty quickly, but you can see behind it is SD Works Pro Time who I believe are chasing here behind. They've got Lorena Wiebes. They're trying to control this race. They want to give the fastest sprinter on 2 wheels, currently in the World Tour peloton, another opportunity to win here in the Lloyds Tour of Britain Women. Not only for the stage, Lizzie, but we talked about her picking up every single second that she can on that general classification. 10, 6 and 4 seconds on the line today. We didn't get the 3, 2 and 1 seconds in the intermediate sprint, and a couple of the riders here just struggling to hold on.
Yep, that's Yela Thrills from O'Shea Red Chili Bikes there. One of the riders from High-Tech Hydraulic Products Fluid Control, that's Alma Moller Rasmussen there, just getting distanced off the back of the peloton as the speed really increases. There is clearly a desire in the bunch to try and get away. Lauren Dixon just about to be swept up by Julia Kopetsky here. Now, will someone go again? This is just the time that they need to make the move if they want to get the gap.
Peloton have got Katrin Allerud in her sight as she's battling on. 18 seconds now, then the gap between Katrin Allerud and that chasing peloton. Just coming into this tricky descent. And the riders at the back being able to just make their way back on here as the pace has come off slightly since that move of Lauren Dixon. And Lauren Dixon, what a rise to fame that she's had. She was outstanding in this race last year, riding for the Hansling Alba development team, and then being picked up by Demi Vollering, by the team of FDJ Suez. She had a fantastic Giro where she finished 11th on general classification, but of course riding for Demi Vollering, who took that win overall. Really impressive, and so much room for improvement, Lizzie, as well.
Let's not forget, this time last year was her first ever World Tour race, let alone World Tour stage race. She has had a phenomenal rise to fame, and she has just been so consistent. Of course, she had a really unfortunate collarbone break back at the Tour de Suisse after being in a two-up rider breakaway on the first stage, where she took second place and was riding in one of the leaders classification jerseys the next day. And she so unfortunately broke her collarbone, but it's so great to see her back in action on home roads here. She was riding within just 100 kilometers of her home in yesterday's stage. So these really are home roads for Lauren Dixon, who's been swept up by the peloton now. No more attacks yet, but there's still a high pace. We can see Zoe Backstead there, sitting up in the white British National Champions jersey, taking off her gilet. She's getting a bit warmer as the race is really hotting up.
The peloton are about to make the catch, so for Katrin Allerud, unfortunately for her, I don't think she's going to be able to hang on here. She's doing everything that she can on this slight incline, and the pace has come out slightly from the peloton, who were chasing Lauren Dixon. They sensed that danger. They didn't want to let her up the road, but perhaps it is a sign of what's to come in the final 50 kilometres of today's stage. We've got a few crosswind sections, albeit covered as they generally are in the UK by these small hedgerows on the sides of the road. We've got that combativity award, let's not forget, as well, every single day. So Katrin Allerud's doing a good job to try and take that prize.
She's pulled that gap back out again, hasn't she? She had one of those Mathieu van der Poel moments where she was about to get caught. The peloton just sat up a little bit and then off she went again. Never give up is the moral of the day. The peloton have really taken the speed out there, and you can see they've bunched up. It's not strung out anymore. Speed has lowered a lot.
But that's what you've got to do, Lizzie, isn't it? You know, just never ever give up, because you don't know what's happening behind. Yes, we had that attack from Lauren Dixon, which caused multiple attacks behind, and that acceleration of pace closed down the gap, but it didn't quite bring back Katrin Allerud, and she's now been able to settle back into her rhythm, and she's opened up that gap once again. So for Katrin Allerud, this is an all or nothing attack. She is totally committed here to trying to do everything she can to open up the gap ahead of that finish line.
She's played her card, and once she's played it, she has to stick to it. Now she's out of sight again, which is the critical thing. Out of sight, out of mind. And the peloton do not seem to be wanting to chasing. But look at the movement in the leaves on the hedgerows there, indicating that perhaps the wind's a little stronger than we think. Now, the wind isn't really going to be a factor until we get to about 40 kilometres to go, but we are through most of the hardest part out of Whalley now. Catherine Aller just pushing the pace up these little rises. She's very soon going to hit this high point before we run down into the finish in Blackpool. There's just one more little sort of obstacle in the road, really, but nothing too much to worry about, and the speed is back in the peloton once again as we come down that little descent.
Liverlula Jaco again pushing the pace here in the peloton. You can really see that dynamic changing. You can sense, you can feel the speed increase behind Katrin Allerud. She's going to carry on with her effort, try and do everything she can to keep that gap established. You can see SD Works Pro Time present on the left-hand side of the screen, the right-hand side of the road, as are the team of Suez, Liverlula Jaco, UAE Team Limad. A couple of riders here just getting rid of their jackets, definitely warmed up after that neutralised start.
Katie Scott, number 165 for Das Hutchinson, given a jacket bag, and now she's got the bare arms for the final run-in, 150 kilometres.
Dean Downing,
legend of British cycling.
A little bit of a thumbs up there in the car. Yeah, former professional himself, as Picnic Postanel are on the move. It's not Fife for Georgie this time. But again, a team without pure sprinter Josie Nelson. Really great job yesterday, and she did well in this race last year too. She finished on the podium on stage 2. I believe it was. Josie Nelson again really showing her strength when it comes to the sprint finishes. 122 is the rider Daniela Hetzenova from Team Picnic Postanel. So really riding aggressively. They've got Callum Ferguson in the car as the director sportif. Really trying to light things up in this final. It's going to be interesting as to who is reactive behind. Daniela Hetzenova started the day 86, 8 minutes and 38 seconds down on general classification, so absolutely no threat in terms of that GC, but we know that there's a lot of teams with some big sprinters, some fast sprinters that really want that opportunity to take a stage victory today. But as we know, Lizzie, one rider, pretty easy to control with still over 50 kilometres to go.
Pretty easy to control, but interestingly, it did look to me like SD Works were chasing as Daniela Hetzenova went up the road. But just as we saw that shot back there with the peloton just in the background, things had slowed down a little bit. It had sort of flattened out at the front. There wasn't one rider pulling it. There's still a decent speed. We've got a little bit of a cross tailwind here, and flat roads, quite flat roads, of course. So the speed is just naturally high. So I do think it's going to be quite difficult for Daniela Hetzenova to get up the road, but Picnic Postanel really want to try something. They are not just handing it to Lorena Wiebes on a plate, and they're trying to give it everything that they've got.
Picnic Postanel definitely not handing it to Lorena Wiebes on a plate, but what is really impressive is Daniela Hetzenova, one of the youngest riders in the peloton. Only 19 years of age, a rider from the Czech Republic. You can see it's human-powered health behind, but they're dragging the whole of the peloton over to Daniela Hetzenova. Yesterday we had Arabella Blackburn as an 18-year-old, the youngest rider in the peloton, attacking really tenacious riders. Still trying to attack, not just following Katrin Allerud though. Only 22 seconds now, the gap being shown to Katrin Allerud. You can almost feel the fatigue now, Lizzie, in her legs.
Yeah, she's suddenly slowed down to a much lower cadence, but that is the kind of cadence she likes to ride. And the reason it is so difficult for these riders to get away on these roads is because they are flatter. There is so much benefit to be behind on roads like this. You're getting such a reduced drag. It is so much easier in the wheels, and even though there is that constant increase and decrease in pace from the attacks. It's so much easier to be on the wheel on a road like this than on the hills. And look, we have another attack. It's Fenix Premier Tech going again. It's Kate Courtney once again who is on it, and I think that is Cecilia Uttrup Ludwig as well. No, it's not. It's potentially Soraya Paladin. Difficult to see, but it is Julia Kopechki once again. She is there in every single move. She has been the most attentive teammate so far for SD Works, and she has been the one that's really saving the day for Lorena Wiebes.
Julia Kopechki, really attentive, really on it for the team of SD Works Pro Time. Steffi Hamelin yesterday, MVP, wasn't she, Lizzie? And that's why we heard Lorena Wiebes so complimentary of the team. There was never really a situation that she was in danger. Look how strung out the peloton here is, though, as we're coming through a couple of these little towns.
On this, these riders at the back will be hoping things slow down a little bit, that it concertinas back together, just like your slinky falling down the stairs, because it is really tough if you are trying to come out into the wind and move up all on your own. 44 seconds now back to Katrine Ullerud. She started with 50, it went down to nearly 10, I would say, and now back to 44. What a ride, never giving up from Katrine Ullerud from Uno X Mobility there. "52 kilometers an hour, look at that, she is flying."
Really impressive speeds for Katrin Allerud, who has been out solo since before that race was neutralised on the Nickel Pendle climb. It was restarted with 66 kilometres to go. The peloton claimed close, but Katrin Allerud did not give up. She's going to have some support from some fans here on the side of the road. It's always what the World Tour peloton talk about when they come to Great Britain to race. That support, the fans that come out in force at the start and the finishes, especially in these sorts of weather conditions. Peloton so appreciative, and it really does make a difference, Lizzie, especially if you're out solo out front on roads like this in this sort of weather.
I think being out solo when the crowds are cheering for you is one of the most special things I've ever experienced in my time as a bike racer. Peloton isn't looking to attack right this second, but it is SD Works who are all over the front, controlling the race. Femke Herritz there on the right-hand side. UAE rider just coming in front of her. We go back to Katrin Ullerud.
Katrin Allerud with 6 professional victories to her name, 5 of which, Lizzie, are in the national championships of Norway in the individual time trial. This looks like Ali Wollaston, though, for me. It is Ali Wollaston. She's got the New Zealand colours on her arms. She is the national road race champion of New Zealand, riding for the team of FDJ Suez. So they've had clear direction, it seems, from Lars Bohm in the car behind, who's the director sportif, to make this as hard as they possibly can. We had Lauren Dixon attacking. It's now Ali Wollaston's turn, so I think they're just going to be 1-2ing until the finish.
That's a really good recovery from Ali Wollaston there. We saw her nursing herself around the first stage into Cockermouth yesterday. She clearly wasn't feeling okay. She was struggling at the beginning of the stage today, but she is up there, and I think her attack will be a foil for counters from riders like Lauren Dixon and Kate Courtney, who will want to try and split this race up.
Katrin Allerud, the current Norwegian time trial champion. She's won that race 5 times. So she knows how to time trial. That puts her in a brilliant position being out solo. She knows the power she can sustain, how to attack the undulation and the peloton behind. Some constant moves coming from teams. FDJ Suez riding aggressively, as are Livalula Jaco with a couple of attacks, really trying to isolate SD Works, make it difficult, trying to use their strength and depth to do everything they can to try and stop Lorena Wiebes winning. And that's a question that we get asked so many times throughout the seaon with her dominance, how do you beat Lorena Wiebes? I mean, it's a great question, Lizzie, isn't it? And really quite a hard one to answer when she is in a league of her own.
Well, will Catherine Ullerud give us an answer today? She heads through the village of Gusnau. We head towards the M6, where the riders are going to be skirting around the outside of Preston. And it would be remiss of me not to mention that Preston is, of course, home to Britain's finest work, in my opinion, of brutalist architecture. The magnificent Preston bus station, built between 1968 and 69, right towards the end of the brutalist period. Have you been to the Preston bus station, Danny?
No, I haven't, Lizzie.
Oh, well, if you're in Preston, you must go. It really is a fabulous piece of architecture. It actually nearly got demolished in the mid-2000s before being given listed status in 2013. It was refurbished in 2018, back to its former glory. And so if anybody is in Preston, do not miss the Preston bus station. It really is magnificent.
I'll be looking that one up later, Lizzie. Thank you.
Oh, look at those kids by the side of the road. They are having a great free day out.
Lloyds Tour of Britain is the largest free to attend sporting spectacle in the UK, and that's what's so special about our sport, isn't it? You get to see these riders, the world's best, go past, sometimes outside your front door.
The first time I ever saw a bike race was the London 2012 Olympic bike race. I was in London for a different Olympic event. I realised that I could go and see another event for free. I rushed across London. It was absolutely chucking it down with rain, and these riders flew past me. I had no idea at the time that it was, of course, the great Marianne Vos and Britain's best Lizzie Deignan, who got Britain's first medal of the whole games, which was a silver medal in that race. And that just, it gave a little spark in me. And even though I didn't know who those riders were, I never forgot that moment and the thrill of watching that race go past. It's another lovely doggy by the side of the road.
No, I remember it well, Lizzie. We were warming up in the velodrome. We had it on the screen as Lizzie Deignan took that incredible silver medal. Lizzie Deignan, of course, winning this race on 2 occasions in 2016 and 2019, but it's Pfeiffer Georgie again. The British rider, Pfeiffer Georgie, is on fire in this Tour of Britain. Yesterday she was on the tack, and yet again, but Ali Wollaston, wise to it, straight on the wheel, not giving Pfeiffer Georgie a bike length, and she's constantly looking over her shoulder, Lizzie, sticking to one side of the road, so she only has to look over one shoulder as to where the attack's going to come next. Zoe Backstead, though, back at the Canyon SRAM car, needs to be attentive to what's happening ahead of her, because might have a little bit of a harder chase back on if these attacks keep going in front of her. It just looks like she's getting a little bit of fuel. Lizzie, we talked about what the Tour de France has taken out of a rider, a young rider like Zoe in her debut, and the efforts that she made for her team.
Yeah, she looks like she's needing something. She's definitely not the leader for today. I'm sure that will be Chiara Consoni, otherwise she wouldn't be going back to the team car. It must have been an exhausting race for her. Back at the team car for something. She didn't actually take that gel that was handed to her. Oh, she's got another one in her pocket. She's just using the car, the draft of the car now, to get back onto the back of the peloton. So what will happen is her car will come right up to the car in front, and as it does, Zoe will just swoosh around the right-hand side, back to the front here, and now it's Phoenix Premier Tech attacking on the right-hand side of the screen. Nothing is getting a real gap. Once again, is that Kintiton of Liverlula Jaco. And Pfeiffer Georgie once again for Team Picnic Post NL. And they are stringing it out, but there is no real gap there. The speed in the peloton is so high behind that nothing is getting away. Perhaps over this rise someone can come with speed, and they are. That is Liv Lula Jaco once again going for it. And who is on her wheel? It is Lotte Kopecky. She nearly got hit there by Kintiton on her left-hand side. Liv Lula Jaco are really going for this. Lotte Kopecky behind her. And there's a little gap back to Shirin Van Anrooy there with Alex Manley on her wheel.
Just coming back together once again. Shirin Van Anrooy was there yesterday in that front group alongside a couple of her teammates, actually. You can see here, though, for Margot van Pachterbaker, she is wearing number 53. Chosen leg warmers today, Lizzie, long sleeve and leg warmers, so clearly feels the cold, because I don't know about you, but I never race in leg warmers, even in freezing temperatures. It almost felt like it restricted my legs somewhat.
I agree with you. I once raced in knee warmers, or a couple of times in knee warmers, I think in the very, very cold days in the classics. I didn't really like it, but when those temperatures really dropped below 5 degrees, it did actually save you sometimes. And although it looked a bit ridiculous at the finish, managed to make it up there ahead of a lot of the riders who often didn't even finish because they sometimes got hypothermia because they were so cold. 22 seconds now is the gap to Katrin Ollerud. The riders just come through the roundabout. I think that might be even a little less than 20. Peloton is quite strung out here. Zoe Backstead still at the back, clearly suffering a bit because that is not her usual position in the peloton. And like you said, Danny, I think that Tour de France fam has really taken a huge amount out of her. And I think if it wasn't the Tour of Britain, I don't think she would be racing here. Oh, just a little bit of road furniture there, right in the middle of the road.
Zoe Backstead making it onto the back of the peloton after going back to her team car. Nice little bit of live data for you there from Zoe Backstead. 300 watts, nearly. Nice high cadence, 91 RPM, speed of around 37.4 kilometers an hour as she got onto the back of the peloton. You can see a lot of the riders freewheeling now though, so I think thankfully for Zoe Backstead, she'll be able to recover a little bit from the acceleration that she would have needed to put in to get onto the back of the peloton. Her team car was there though, she would have been able to use that to jump across to the neutral service car and onto the back of the peloton with ease. She's a rider that stays really calm, but unfortunately for Katrin Ollerud, Movistar are on the attack and they're about to make the junction. So the day is over for Katrin Ollerud as she got any energy left to jump onto the back of this move from Movistar.
Femke Heritzer there in third wheel. SD Works, almost the identical twin in looks of Lorena Wiebes.
In looks and style, Lizzie, and she is also a really fast finisher. I remember hearing that the team actually didn't know how quick she was. It was only in a training camp where they were practicing their lead-outs. They realised how good she was. Uno X on the move, though. So as Katrin Ollerud has been caught, it is down now to her teammate. This looks like Alessia Vigilia, I believe, here on the attack for Uno X Mobility. So another team that think that if this comes down to a bunch sprint, they won't feature. So what tactic can they employ to win this stage two?
Well, we're just coming out of Broughton here, and this is the bit where we could have some crosswinds coming up. I'm not so sure. I'm looking at the trees and trying to see if there's enough movement, and I'm not so sure. The hedges are quite high. They haven't been cut. I do think that there's a little bit of the course which will be a bit more exposed later, but it's always difficult to tell when you do your research on Google Maps. Of course, you don't know what the greenery is going to be like in real life. Alessia Vigilia has got a little bit of a gap there. It's Picnic, is it Picnic Post-NL, I think, who are trying to close it down, but like you say, Danny, they are just dragging the bunch, and actually it's a rider from O'Shea Red Chili Bikes who is in second wheel behind Picnic Post-NL. Only about a 5-second gap now for Alessia Vigilia.
Alessia Vigilia with 2 professional victories to her name. Not in a World Tour race though. The Mag Trophy ladies and the stage of the Giro d'Oscana. Both in 2023, so 3 years since her last victory. She came into the team of Uno X Mobility this year from the team of FDJ Suez, where she spent 2 years in 24 and 25. And you can see it's the Hansling Alba development team on the front. It looks like Arabella Blackburn, but one of the Picnic Post NL riders trying to bridge across. Looks like Pfeiffer Georgie to me, who has yet again been one of the most combative riders of the day. FDJ Suez, or perhaps it's the black rain jackets of SD Works Pro Time, because they have to control, let's not forget, with Lorena Wiebes here, and have been super attentive throughout. It's Movistar. So Femke Henriksen is there just behind, a couple of riders behind the rider from Movistar, who was there, but now we're coming into the final 40 kilometres of the race, so around an hour's worth of racing left. You can see Lorena Wiebes just sat in around 10th position in that green leader's jersey. Brianna Marcus is there.
Lorena Wiebes was on the radio there, but this is really playing perfectly into the hands of SD Works. They have enough riders to control the race. All 6 of their riders are here as we see an attack from FDJ Suez on the right-hand side of the road. I think that was Eva van Aert. She lost her wheel a little bit as she went right into the dirt. Off she goes. UAE Team ADQ on her wheel. There's Melissa's bike behind her. And the Great Britain national team behind that. Eva van Aert of FDJ United Suez taking this right-hand corner very fast. Nearly a little collision there with the UAE Team Limad rider, but no gap, nothing is getting shut down. As I was saying, playing perfectly into the hands of SD Works. All they need to do is control, and Lorena Wiebes needs to sit pretty. She needs to use as little energy as she can, and then really stay in the bunch. And they've got so many other riders to control the race that they can protect Misha Bredevold, they can protect Lorena Wiebes, and they can use Femke Heritzer, Julia Kopecky, and if needed, Steffi Harbelin, of course, who we saw yesterday protecting so many times to bring those riders back.
Looks like a crash on the left-hand side of the road here. It's one of the Great Britain national team riders as well. 165, Katie Scott from the Dash Hutchinson team. One of the Liv Alula Jayco riders. 181 from
Anna Morris.
Anna Morris. That's a real shame for Anna Morris because she was the only Great Britain national team rider to be in that front group yesterday. We're just going to have a replay look at the left-hand side of the road here. We don't quite see what happened, but probably just an overshot of that corner. You can see a couple of riders in the ditch here, but for Anna Morris, that is a real shame. You can see her here now, double gold medalist from the Commonwealth Games recently that we had in Glasgow, the Sir Chris Hoy velodrome. I was really lucky to be able to watch her compete in the individual pursuit, in the points race, also in the team pursuit as well, where she was incredibly strong. And if any rider can time trial their way back onto the peloton, it is Anna Morris. And I would wonder if, and I'm sure if she was part of a stronger team, she would have teammates, Lizzie, coming back to help her in this chase.
I think she's going to be able to get back on once the convoy passes her. I don't think there will be a barrage, and a barrage is where the cars behind are blocked from coming forward. I think the cars are, you can see behind the peloton, the cars are moving forward now, and once they've moved forward, Anna Morris will be able to move up with them. There was another rider from Liv Alula Jayco. We will get that news to you of who that was very shortly, who was on the ground just ahead of Anna Morris, who didn't immediately get up. Here we go, her team car, that's Matt Bramier, her DS in the team car, and is Lizzie Deignan sitting to the left of him? We're just going to try and have a little look for you. She's just getting back onto the back of the convoy now. Very fast right-hand corner there.
Another move by the EF Education only rider, Alice Towers. She's riding for the Great Britain national team, though, here. I wonder if she knows that if her teammate is chasing back on, though, Lizzie. She would have been able to get back on pretty easily, but she still wasn't on when Alice Towers here has made the move.
She may have got the news that Anna Morris was in the convoy.
You can see her at the back there. I can just see Anna Morris getting onto the back of the peloton here. So that was really swiftly done there from Anna Morris. Quick word with Matt Bramier, as we saw, but she will do everything that she can here to try and move up as quickly as possible. She doesn't want to be put into that position again. We believe it was Georgia Baker who was the rider from Liv Alula Jayco. She's their fast finisher, so hopefully she's okay. Really impressive riding by one of the British Continental teams, the Dansling Alba Development Road team as well. We saw Arabella Blackburn, the young 18-year-old, on the attack yesterday. Unfortunately suffered a wasp sting on her way. She was joined by Audrey de Keersmacher. Victoria Quattasini is a rider from FDJ Suez here on the back. World-class track rider, Olympic champion on the track in the Madison. Yannick. pace. It's really on now. Only 33.4 kilometres to go. Lotte Kopecky looking so focused here, just glued to the back wheel of that lead rider.
I have to say, I really do like it when it's filthy weather and the riders wear the clear glasses, because it's almost like you can see inside their souls when they're wearing those clear lenses that really allow you to read their minds, see the focus on their face. Peloton is a little bit more compact now. Things seem to have settled down a little bit, but I'm sure that won't be for long.
About 5 riders with a little gap. Zoe Baxter here present with this acceleration that's come again from Picnic Poster now. Same protagonist yet again. A few teams clearly, as we go past this nice dinosaur, giving the riders a little bit of a morale. I'm sure a few of them would have cracked a smile as they passed the dinosaur on the side of the road.
Roaring them on, Danny.
Love it, Lizzie. It's the same teams, it's the same riders, trying again and again and again.
But we've also seen those continental teams trying, like you said, Hansling Alba development riders, getting to the front and attacking. And it's really difficult to even get to the front when the peloton is like this. You said, Danny, before about the washing machine effect, as we suddenly see the pace go out of the peloton. That washing machine effect, you can be at the front, you get sucked into the middle of the bunch, you get drawn all the way back, and you have to go all the way around the outside again to get back to the front, and that can use a lot of energy and be very, very hard to do. Holding your position in the bunch is a very difficult skill, and one that can take riders years, or sometimes some light riders are very, very lucky to be just sort of born with it. Some riders never ever get it at all.
Some riders better at positioning than others. The riders have got around 8 kilometres left travelling towards the west of the country before they'll take a left-hand turn at Singleton. They'll then have a nice tailwind before turning right onto the coast, where they will have a pretty strong headwind finish actually, Lizzie, into Blackpool, around 20 kilometres an hour. That can change the dynamic of a sprint. The riders will have to be patient as to when they want to be dropped off by their lead out. We're predicting quite a chaotic, messy final, but Picnic Poster now yet again, fight for Georgie on the attack time and time again, isn't she? Will that elastic snap for Pfeiffer? Is she using up too much energy though? Because for me, Pfeiffer could be a rider that could do well as a general classification rider here for the team of Picnic Poster now, but clearly it seems with the ambition of stages.
Yeah, it seems so. And it's also interesting that she's not being saved as their lead-out rider for Josie Nelson, or indeed for the sprint herself. She obviously feels that she's not going to get away tomorrow, perhaps, because she is using a lot of energy here today. She clearly thinks that there is a chance of getting up the road. Is that Georgia Baker, who has just come back to the peloton? I think it might be. Movistar are trying to make the move. So once again, we see Pfeiffer Georgie up the road.
Alice Towers coming back to the neutral service car here, Commissaire car. Pfeiffer Georgie, though, is the rider still at the front. Alessivia Vigilia on the attack again for the UnoX Mobility team. ST Works, though, they do not want to let anything go away. You can see how that pace has increased now, though. Looks like number 91, Amber Pate, who has had a brilliant comeback, Lizzie, actually. Quite astounding after a surgery around 6 months ago. We were talking about her just earlier today. She had a lot of compliments from her teammates yesterday. Great to see her back in the peloton.
Yeah, we just see an attack there from High Tech Products Fluid Control, but Amber Pate, what a 6 months she has had. She had a crash at Biobank Samin ladies race in March, and it was only because of that crash that she had an abdominal scan. They found her pancreas was slightly more enlarged than usual, and because of that they went on to do another scan of the pancreas itself. They actually found a small and slow-growing malignant tumour on her pancreas. She flew back to Australia, she had surgery on that, and then she's had a 6-month recovery. It's taken a long time for her to come back from that. She's had a lot of fatigue, but it's great to see her back. And that was a great move from the High Tech Products Fluid Control rider there, who's suddenly got a good 10-15 second gap on the peloton.
Brilliant move by one of the High Tech Products Fluid Control riders. None of their riders started the day as one of a threat in that general classification. 2 riders were in that second group on the road yesterday, Magdalene Lind and Oda Gissinger. But this is a fantastic move, perhaps underestimated by the peloton. These riders are a real opportunity to try and establish a gap, but we've seen a lot of aggressive riding in the past 10 kilometres or so, especially from the likes of Uno X, Liverlula Jaco, Picnic Post-Anel with Fife and Georgie. This is a really well-established gap, and it looks like the team of Hansling Albert Development Road Team, Oda Gissinger, is the rider up the road, but the peloton perhaps now, with a little bit of pace coming out, will give our leader the chance to open up the gap. Long sleeve, long-fingered gloves as well. Lizzie, just shows how chilly it's been out there on the roads of the UK.
You know though, Danny, once your hands get cold, it's so difficult to warm them up. And if you've got your gloves in your pocket, better to put them on, keep them on, and then put them back in if you need to take them off again. But once your hands get cold, if they get really cold, I've been in races where I haven't even been able to move the shifters. Back before I had electronic shifting, I had just to have to use my whole arm to actually move the shifters because I was so cold. And it's so dangerous. You can't even pull the brakes in those conditions. It was actually on a circuit in Lancashire run by the organisation called Dark North. Look at that rain ahead. Maybe she's right to have those gloves on. We can see the dark clouds above Blackpool there.
Unpredictable weather here on stage 2 from Clitheroe to Blackpool. 110.5 kilometres the stage today, 1,392 metres of elevation. The riders have tackled that already. We've got a panned flat run into Blackpool today. A big peloton currently. One lone leader from the team of High Tech Products Fluid Control. Oda Gissinger, we believe, one rider from Movistar with the arm in the air. You can hear the toots of the horn behind, probably from the team car of Movistar, who would have been informed by the race directors that the riders want some assistance. They can then move up in the convoy. Convoy determined by the general classification. On stage 1, it's down to the UCI World Tour leaders, and you can see number 133, Oda Gissinger. Now she's really settled into her effort, Lizzie, here.
She has indeed. She very nearly got caught by the peloton. It looked like it went down to just a few seconds and went back out again. Looks like we might be about to get some more rain for Oda Gissinger. I was very interested to see when we were looking at the back of the bunch that Kim LaCourte was right at the back on the left-hand side, and we can just see those spots of rain on the camera as she takes this right-hand turn. I think the riders are about to hit another rainstorm, and that is Hansling Albert Development once again, who are trying to get up the road. Anna Flynn.
And we saw this from the Continental teams last year, didn't we? Really handing it. Look at the rain coming down now, Lizzie. They are going to be isolated showers, I'm sure, but this is really going to potentially affect the riders, make it a little bit more technical, even more important to be positioned well now, and the visibility is going to be pretty poor.
This is going to play right into the hands of Oda Gissinger because she is away on her own. She can see where she's going, and you can see that the rain is coming directly straight into the riders' faces. Lotte Kopecky there in the middle of your shot, just dipping her head to try and avoid the rain stinging her face. Ouch, that looks like it's really unpleasant. You can see Julia Kopecki as well. She was just turning her head to the left-hand side there, trying to avoid the stinging rain on her face. And suddenly, the roads are flooded with water, just like that, in about a minute and a half. This is a very heavy, very localised shower. This is not fun, but this gives Oda Gissinger the chance for the gap to go out as we see an attack from Movistar on the right-hand side. And who is it once again? It is Liv Lula-Jaco on the wheel.
Movistar on the attack again as we've got our solo leader ahead of the race, around 18 seconds ahead of the race. But if this keeps happening behind, that gap is going to come down incredibly quickly as the rain is now battling down on the roads as we head towards Blackpool. 133, Oda Gissinger from the team of High-Tech Products Fluid Control is trying to do everything that she can. You can see she's got an Uno X Mobility bottle on her bike, so some really nice respect between all of the Swannies, all of the teams, just assisting all of the riders out there on the road. If she didn't have the opportunity to take some fuel from her own team, and you can just see how tough these weather conditions are for the riders. A few stem notes on her bike here, just showing her the real critical parts of today's race, today's route. And it is Movistar that are really trying to close this one down, injected a huge amount of pace into this group. I think this is Sarah Martin, but SD Works Pro Time yet again are straight onto this.
SD Works Pro Time haven't missed a beat. They are straight onto it. The gap hasn't even got out to 20 seconds up to Oda Gissinger, but there is now a little gap back to the peloton. Will SD Works come through? That is the question. Now, is that Misha Bredevold? I think it might be on the wheel of the Movistar rider. It looks like the face of Misha Bredevold there. Her teammate, I think that's Lotte Kopecky just behind her with the bare arms, just behind the Uno X Mobility rider.
Misha Bredevold is the rider from SD Works Pro Time. Just behind her to Lotte Kopecky, and Oda Gissinger is about to get caught. That left-hand turn was made, so now the riders are riding into pretty much a blocked tailwind until they hit the coast. They take that right-hand turn with 9.5 kilometers to go. It's then a very straight run into the line, a little left and right with around 700 meters to go, but look how strung out this is. 25 kilometers to go to the finish here of the Lloyds Tour of Britain Women's Stage 2 into Blackpool. We're now riding into a tailwind as we come closer to the finish line. Oda Gissinger is still holding her own, but the peloton are pretty close. Pace has come out slightly. You can see that by the way they're situated and using up the whole entire road, not in one long line, giving a chance for a couple of riders to just take a little bit of fuel on the back, get themselves onto the back, recover slightly. But who is going to be the next to make a move? Oda Gissinger just looking over her shoulder.
See the motorbikes trying to get past the peloton on the right-hand side here. Now, those are the motorbikes that keep the road closed and safe for the riders. They have points on the road where they need to pass the peloton as they go ahead and keep that rolling road closure in action to keep those roads nice and safe. But look at the roads here. They are covered in water, puddles everywhere. The riders will be absolutely soaked as we hear those screeching of brakes with the concertina behind.
Is really brutal conditions for the riders here in the Tour of Britain. We haven't seen conditions like these. Even in the classics, the riders were pretty lucky with the weather conditions that we had. And as Lizzie said there, you can hear the screeching of brakes as they take this left-hand turn into that roaring tailwind that we're going to have now as we head towards the coast. We can see Alex Manley just behind for the team of AG Insurance Soudal. Alongside her, Lotte Kopecky for SD Works Pro Time. Lorena Wiebes is still in this peloton. She took the victory yesterday into Cockermouth. We still have a complete peloton here. Temperatures are going to be dropping.
We can see how much more work it is at the back of the peloton going through those corners, Danny. As the front of the peloton just swept around that left-hand corner, the back of the peloton had to slam on their brakes and took a really long time to get round, having to accelerate once again. So there really is a little bit of a fine balance of where you want to be. You don't want to be right on the front, having to use your energy in the wind. One of the riders from Movistar there has got her hand up. She's wanting some clothes, or maybe she has a mechanical. It doesn't look like she has a mechanical. Let's see what she wants. Normally feeding would close. Oh, she's just taken her Garmin off her bars, so perhaps she's wanting a bike change. That would signify that she wants a bike change. That's number 90, number 84. Is that Leanna Lippert? It doesn't look like Leanna Lippert.
One of the riders from Movistar then wanting a bike change. Those bike computers critical for the riders to have the map, to have the kilometres to go. But for now, Oda Gissinger is solo. There's one rider that's trying to bridge across the gap to Oda Gissinger from the team of High Tech Products Fluid Control. We'll see who that rider is as soon as we can. The visibility as well for us. Don't forget, we are bringing you this coverage from 4 and 5G signal. But brilliant that we can have such coverage of what is such a brilliant race. Perhaps it's Pfeiffer Georgie from the team of Picnic Personnel. She's been so aggressive in this stage so far, and surely the elastic had to snap at some point.
Can't believe quite how many attacks Pfeiffer Georgie has made today. She's been going and going and going again. It certainly looks like the dark colours of the Picnic Post NL's livery. We will try to get a shot of that, but it is absolutely chucking it down with rain, making it difficult for the riders, difficult for us, but slightly less difficult for us than the riders. We are nice and dry here, but Oda Gissinger is certainly the one laughing about having those gloves on. She's not going to be cold, thankfully. See, it's quite calm here at the back of the peloton. A few more screeches of brakes.
Oda Gissinger making sure she stays fueled. It's so easy to forget about fueling, especially when you're out here solo. Perhaps the first experience of being solo for Oda Gissinger. She's only 19 years of age. These young riders really riding tenaciously in this tour. Screeching the brakes again for the riders. Those stopping speeds are going to be so much longer in conditions like this. Some riders will relish these conditions over others. Some defeated before they start, but you really have to try and relish riding in the rain. Just like climbing, really, as well. If you dread it, you've almost lost before you started. 20 seconds now, the gap being shown to Oda Gissinger. A few of the riders really not enjoying these conditions. Thankfully, we don't have any tricky descents on the run into Blackpool.
And thankfully, Danny, as well, the roads are generally pretty uncomplicated. The final finish straight is 9.5 kilometres. No turns really to mention, apart from a very slight left-right with 700 to 500 metres to go. So absolutely no stress, I think, for the peloton here. 20 seconds. They could close that down in just a few kilometres if they needed to, with that increased speed as they headed into the sprint finish. But suddenly it seems to have gone out a little bit. Perhaps there's been a bit of a slowdown in the bunch, but these really are filthy conditions to be riding in. It is raining cats and dogs out there in Lancashire.
Relentless conditions for the riders today. We are now believing that the rider in between is Daniela Hezenova. She was on the attack earlier today. Another 19-year-old riding for the team of Picnic Personnel. And she's in the gap between Oda Gissinger and this peloton behind, who don't seem too phased currently, as the rider from Movistar has had a bike change. We know that because the number is not on her seat post. So every rider will have their race bike, that will have the race number on their seat post, and we always look for that if we're looking to see if a rider's had the bike change. It's not Leanna Lippert. I think it's Sarah Martin. But again, we'll try and get confirmation when we can, but it's pretty tough with these riders in their rain jackets. This rain is relentless though. Uta Gissinger just perhaps changing her data screen on her computer. It says there 20 kilometres to go, so feeding is over for the peloton as well. Half an hour-ish of racing. Brilliant to see fans out with their umbrellas still here to support the women, even with this rain. Oh, looks like a little...
Coming together, very slight touching of wheels, but thankfully nobody came down there for the Hansling Alba development rider. It's a very British thing to be standing out in the rain. I think the only thing more British than that is to be having a barbecue in the rain, Danny.
Something I haven't done actually, but
I'm amazed how that's possible, because I feel like every time you have a barbecue in the UK, it just starts raining.
I've been pretty lucky, I think, actually, with my barbecues.
Living in sunny Cardiff, of course.
Don't know about sunny.
Famously dry.
19.4 kilometres to go. The gap to Uta Gissinger, the 19-year-old Norwegian rider riding for the team of High-Tech Products Fluid Control, is doing a brilliant job in holding off the peloton. She was part of the European Continental Junior Mixed Relay team that won gold last year. So obviously a strong time trialist. She hasn't had any professional victories to her name, but only 19 years of age. Pace has come out of the peloton now, it seems. Slight narrowing of the road as well. Pretty gnarly road surfaces too here for the riders.
And right at the back of the peloton, we've got Ali Williston once again, the rider for FDJ United Sewers. You can just about see the white of the National Championships jersey from New Zealand as we go back to Uta Gissinger at the head of the race. Thankfully, it's stopped raining now, although the roads are still very, very wet. Riders just heading down towards the village of Great Plumpton.
Just see a few riders trying to move up on the left, on the right. The riders not too worried about our leader. And naturally, we are going to see the pace start to increase. What information will Uta Gissinger be being relayed from her team now, Lizzie? She'll have her DS in her ear, of course, all riders with radios on, with communication between the riders, between the DSs in the cars behind.
Her DS will just be telling her to settle in and to give it everything that she's got, and to be reminding her that she is out the front of a World Tour stage race. She is in front of riders like Lorena Wiebes, 134 wins under her belt, and this is really her moment to shine. Keep digging deep. Look, it says now that that gap has gone out to 40 seconds. By the landmarks on the road, it did seem to be a bit more than 20, and Daniela Herzenova is in a little bit of a chasse-patate stuck between her and the peloton. I think Daniela Herzenova has actually just been caught. Maybe we're going to get an update on that gap to the chasers soon. I'll go back to Uta Gissinger. I think she'll just be getting told to dig deep, because she will be really suffering here. She is all on her own, probably in a world of pain. She's definitely going to be giving it the best time trial of her life. The team will be trying to make her believe that she can make it to that finish in Blackpool. You have to try and believe that. Otherwise, you just can't dig deep enough. And the team are going to be really encouraging her on that radio.
Of course, always having to believe, as will a lot of the riders here in this peloton behind. A lot of the sprinters will be looked after in the final. The teams will know the composition of their lead-outs. Which rider will take the lead first? Generally, the riders with the bigger engines, the more explosive riders, as the final lead-out woman for the sprinters. But for Uta Gissinger, she is in pure time trialing mode now, with a huge opportunity as a 19-year-old to take a first World Tour victory. Gingerly taking this right-hand turn because of just how wet these conditions are, but accelerating as quickly as she possibly can back up to speed.
Looked like it was going to dry out there, but no, the rain is just coming down, and as you can see the direction of the rain, it's coming straight into the riders' faces once again. This will probably again play into the hands of Oda Gissinger, but there is a decent amount of pace in that peloton. You can see the speed of the cadence of those riders of AG Insurance Soudal on the top of the screen there with the blue helmets and the black rain jackets, and Kim Lecourt-Panier in third position there with the multicoloured helmet and the red, blue, yellow and green jersey.
So 1-2-2. This is Daniela Hetzenova, so actually not quite caught by the peloton. Really battling with the bike. Head bowing. 12 seconds we're being shown to that peloton behind.
I'm just wondering what that was on the right, on her right arm at the top, Danny, whether it was perhaps the button from a whoop under her sleeve. When we go back to her, we'll have a look again and see if we can work out what it was. Of course, Kristen Faulkner got disqualified from Strade Bianche for wearing a blood glucose monitor quite a few years ago. She got third place on the podium and then was later disqualified. So, see if we can find out what that was for you.
Oda Gissinger with a huge opportunity here on stage 2. Daniela Hetzenova in the gap, gritting her teeth. You can see that radio strapped to her ear. She'll be getting information from Callum Ferguson, who's the DS in the car behind. You can see that map on her screen as well. She'll be able to see the severity of the twists and the turns. Not too technical. Now the run into Blackpool. The weather conditions will play into the hands of our leaders out ahead, but with a huge amount of impetus, motivation from the teams behind, with more riders, more sprinters present here as well. Compared to yesterday's stage, which came down to a select group of 32 riders, there's going to be more riders believing that they can do it on a stage like today, if, of course, they catch Oda Gissinger, who is our race leader.
This is a tough ride, though, for Daniela Hetzenova. She is not making inroads. The peloton can probably see her, and if she looks behind her shoulder, she can probably see them. That was definitely a whoop band on the right arm of the Picnic Post NL rider. Now back to the front. Who is on the front? It is AG Insurance, Soudal, and SD Works next to them. Human Powered Health in those red helmets with UAE at the bottom of the screen, and she is suffering. Look at her face, absolutely caked in mud from those wet and muddy roads today.
15 kilometres to the finish then. Daniela Hetzenova has just gone through, and it is AG Insurance Soudal setting the pace. A nice bubble around Kim Lecourt with riders in front and behind her really looking after her. SD Works 2 in control with Femke Heritzer, Misha Bredeveld, who is clearly going for that general classification, being the rider to pick up points. Lorena Wiebes is there. Lara Gillespie for the team of UAE Team Limad. She was dropped yesterday, so didn't even have the opportunity to sprint. So she is going to really be motivated in today's final. It'll be interesting to see how dangerous these moves become. This woman, Oda Gissinger, being 50 seconds and rising this gap to the peloton behind. Will anyone or the other teams give assistance to SD Works Pro Time, who have full responsibility with the race leader, Lorena Wiebes?
It is interesting. The teams are holding a decent pace at the front. There's no one team that's taking control. But as we saw there were 4 or 5 teams, 4 or 5 of the teams with the top sprinters who were all riding across the road. And the thing is, on these roads, you don't want to fall back and lose your position, because it is so hard to get that position back again. And I think that they are just keeping it under control. I think that when they need to wind it up, they will. Probably with about 10 kilometres to go. We turn right onto the promenade, of course, at 9.5 kilometres to go. And there we're going to hit a headwind for Oda Gissinger, and that's when it's going to get really, really tough for her. The fatigue is going to start to set in. And so I think that they probably will be able to bring her back. Just 14 kilometres to go now. But they need to not leave it too late.
Cannot afford to leave it too late, but also they don't want to catch her too soon. is really a measured effort for the teams behind. If they catch her too soon, they're opening up then the opportunity for others to attack, which they then have to control, of course. But leave it too late and they run the risk of not even having the opportunity to sprint. We know that a headwind is not conducive to anyone who's away solo. That speed difference could be so much higher with the peloton behind. The rain is still falling. Thankfully, the camera operators are on it, wiping the screens for us to give us as clear a picture as we can. Oda Gissinger, though, still doing a fabulous job here out front. Daniela Hesanova, you can tell just with a little bit more fatigue. Some riders really show that more than others with the body position on the bike. Not as solid as Oda Gissinger, as you can see, that contrast of style.
It's interesting though, they're both holding the same position to the peloton. Daniela Herzanova actually pulled it out again a little bit. So if they could have managed to join up, which they didn't, of course, because Oda Gissinger attacked out of the peloton long before Daniela Herzanova did. If they'd managed to be a duo, they would be finding it so much easier now. But Daniela Herzanova has taken another little 5 seconds back to Oda Gissinger. But it's still another 20 seconds to get up to her, and I don't think she's going to make the junction with only 12.9 kilometers to go now. Like you said, Danny, Oda Gissinger is looking really, really smooth. She has a lovely style on that bike, holding that really tucked aero position, trying to get as low as she can, hands on the bars now, really tucking in. It's like a demi-vollering position, 257 watts, 100 RPM and 44 kilometers an hour. 50 seconds back to the peloton. Now that's saying that Daniela Herzanova has taken another 5 seconds into her gap between her and Oda Gissinger. So if those two riders can join up, they would definitely be a force to be reckoned with if they work together.
Definitely would be a force to be reckoned with, but Oda Gissinger is not going to sit up, especially with only 12.4 kilometers to go. It's down to Daniela Herzanova. If she can bridge across to Oda Gissinger here with that peloton behind, and they are soon to pass that 10 kilometers to go, and that generally does really start the final. Those teams will be getting together, trying to establish their lead outs, control this gap, line things up for what especially SD Works Pro Time will want, and that is a sprint finish into Blackpool along the coastline, that famous pleasure beach, a famous mirror ball on that coast. A 9.5 kilometer run along that coast, a headwind finish for the riders, so they're going to have to be patient in the sprint. Lorena Wiebes, though, has proven time and time again that she's in a league of her own, so perhaps not needing to be as patient as others. You can see Kim LaCourte just talking into the radio, but being looked after by her team. She's got 4 teammates around her, 1 in front, 3 behind, just really creating that bubble that we talk about. You can see the lead up in front, so for Daniela Hesanova, just about that carrot to chase. Peloton not far behind Daniela Hesanova, so the peloton will also have that carrot and also that confidence that this gap is controllable. Human Powered Health now coming to the front. Human Powered Health with Maggie Coles-Lister as their sprinter. Looks like Petra Stiasny, Lizzie, I think.
Yeah, that does look like the
brilliant.
diminutive figure of Petra Stiasny, who's managed to get to the front, which I think is hard enough, and doing the team job to try and control the gap here. Maggie Coles-Lister is very, very motivated, coming back from that iliac artery endofibrosis surgery that she had just a year ago.
A little bit of a chat between teammates of UAE Team Limad there as well. They've got Lara Gillespie sat in the Irish national colours, winning both the road race and the time trial. And the catch is about to be made there. You can see Daniela Hesanova has just been caught by the peloton. Oda Gissinger just up the road as the helicopter camera just pans, gives us a wider shot. Didn't quite see her. Eleanor Backstead, though, now coming to the front. And you can see riders are on the drops. They're getting ready. They're communicating, coming together. The lead out is really on as we're about to approach 10 kilometres to go.
Just 1.5 kilometres now before we turn right along the seafront and we hit that headwind run into Blackpool, and that is where the riders are really going to want to get their lead outs together. You can see they are already beginning to get lined up now. We've got AG Insurance on the left-hand side of the road with SD Works Pro Time just to their right-hand side. We can just see how the pace has picked up a little bit in the peloton now. You can see the second rider from the right-hand side, the UAE Limad rider picking up the pace. 10 kilometres to go now in the finish of this sprint stage into Blackpool, but we have not yet caught the lone leader of Oda Gissinger. Here she is. She won stage 3 of the Tour de Feminin in the Czech Republic just this May, but this is a whole nother ball game. 10 kilometres to go, and this is going to be the 10-kilometre time trial of her life. Can she make it, as we see the peloton taking that right-hand turn with 9.5 kilometres to go to the finish line now? Oda Gissinger is having to do the ride of her life here. Everything is on the line for her.
The peloton have taken that turn with 8.8 kilometres to go now being shown on our screens, and you can see the lead outs are starting to form. Human Powered Health taking things up. You can see Maddie Coles-Lister sat in 3rd position. AG Insurance trying to come through. You can see Kim LaCour is very much protected. Zoe Backstead on the right-hand side. She's going to be trying to line things out for Chiara Consoni, who was 2nd on yesterday's stage. Raindrops still falling here in Blackpool. Zoe Backstead there, just indicating a couple of cones on the side of the road with that skip there. AG Insurance, Femke Heritzer, Misha Bredevold constantly looking over her shoulder, checking that Lorena Wiebes is there, that she's not in trouble, that she is calm, focused and ready to launch another attack here. But for Oda Gissinger, just taking one of the Unuex mobility bottles, actually, from her bike, which is great to see, of course. Julia Kopechki coming to the front too for SD Works, so strength in numbers. Good to see British rider Anna Morris after that crash, and Canyon Shroud with more riders.
The pace here, it isn't really high. Now, we just saw the Canyon Tram rider coming to the front, looking to her left, and there is no one team that is really taking it up. It's going to be interesting to see who AG Insurance Soudal decide to ride for. It's Letizia Borghese on the wheel of Kim LaCour, and on her wheel is Alex Manley. So Letizia Borghese was given the card to go for it yesterday, but it may be Alex Manley who gets the opportunity today. 7.7 kilometres to go there, and it's still Oda Gissinger who is out in front. We believe she has still got a 50-second gap, so if the teams want to winch that bunch sprint, then somebody is going to have to get on the front of the race and control it very soon.
Has the peloton underestimated Oda Gissinger, the 19-year-old rider from High Tech Products Fluid Control, with probably the biggest opportunity of her life here? Tennille Campbell has made it up to the front as well. That's brilliant to see. Tennille Campbell back in the World Tour. She's been riding on the track, winning multiple Pan Am track titles, aiming for LA 28 on the track, road race and in the time trial. But for now, Oda Gissinger got one straight road ahead of her. And again, this isn't conducive to our one leader, our lone leader, as Steffi Hamelin now takes it up for SD Works Pro Time. So SD Works Pro Time now taking that responsibility with 7 kilometres to go. Julia Kopechki behind. UAE Team Limad on the left-hand side of the road, trying to line things up for Lara Gillespie. Lara Gillespie moving forward. Doesn't have as many teammates as Lorena Wiebes here at the front though. Oda Gissinger turning herself inside and out. Could this be the biggest win of her career so far?
They have left it very late to do this chasing. SD Works, I saw Julia Kopechki pushing her earpiece into her ear to try and hear what her team was saying. Sometimes in these conditions with the wind and the rain, it can be very difficult to hear the director in your ear. And just after that, we saw Steffi Hamelin going up to the front, and it looks like they have it under control now. All of the sprint teams wanting to go. I think sometimes on these wide roads, it's difficult to see quite how big the speed is.
A messy, chaotic sprint potentially on these wide roads here into Blackpool. SD Works Pro Time may have left it too late. 28 seconds though, so actually I think that gap is closable for that peloton behind, with still 6.3 kilometres to go, riding into a headwind as well. Human Powered Health trying to set things up for Maggie Coles-Lister. Canyon SRAM on the right-hand side of the road, a little move, but it's just the Canyon SRAM rider. It looks like Soraya Paladin just now slotting into place, just to add a little bit of reinforcement to the team, as FDJ Suez now in the middle of the screen. They've got Ali Wollaston as their sprinter, so a huge amount of sprinting talent here today, Lizzie.
Yeah, you can suddenly see that change in pace, Danny. Look at the faces of the riders, the intent of the riders, the speed and the cadence, and the shape of the peloton too. Oda Gissinger looking back behind there, thinking that everything might be over, but not giving up. She needs to get to the right-hand side of the road, really, because the wind is coming from the right, and the closer she can be to that right-hand side, the more shelter she will have from those buildings. The peloton are really breathing down her neck, but a little bit of pace has just gone back out, as we just see Kim LaCourte there freewheeling. But Oda Gissinger is certainly not freewheeling. She is head down, 5 kilometres to go to the line. She has got it all to play for today.
All to play for into Blackpool on stage 2. Remember, it's the 5 kilometre rule here today, so a little bit of relief for those GC riders as they go through the 5 kilometre to go sign. We can just see it up ahead on the right-hand side. That green sign will indicate 5 kilometres to go. You can see Kim LaCourte, the Mauritian rider, with that green, yellow, red helmet. The team of AG Insurance just tucked nicely into the right-hand side behind her teammates. Oda Gissinger, though, she wants to stay ahead of this peloton, but I don't think it's going to be for the High-Tech Products fluid control rider. And we're now inside that 5 kilometres to go here into Blackpool. It's definitely not 10 seconds now. That's going to come down so quickly. And then it's going to be all about the lead out. Who's got the legs? Who's got the explosivity, the power, the speed into Blackpool today? Lorena Wiebes is head and shoulders above the rest, but there's more sprinters here today.
What a fight. This is a tricky run-in, but there we go. Lorena Wiebes coming up through the middle of the pack, piloted by her teammate, as Oda Gissinger just gets caught and swept into the peloton on the left-hand side. And then we can see Lorena Wiebes' teammates, Julia Kopechki, just coming in front of her with one rider ahead of her.
3 riders then ahead of Lorena Wiebes for the team of SD Worx Pro Time, and this is what they do best. Setting things up for Lorena Wiebes. They are now very much in control. It's Alice Towers on the left-hand side trying to set things up for Anna Morris, number 181, who is in the middle of the picture there. A few of the other sprinters really trying to come through and get themselves into position, but in the wind.
Right on the bottom left of the screen, we can see Lotte Kopecki's head poking out from SD Worx. She keeps looking over to the right. How can I get over to that right-hand side to help my sprinter? As we see UAE bringing Lara Gillespie, the Irish national champion, up on the left-hand side.
Lara Gillespie being brought up now. It's UAE Team Limad who are in the lead, as Julia Kopechki has now flicked her elbow. It's the turn of Femke Herrickse for SD Worx Pro Time on the right. So UAE Team Limad on the left. Alongside them is the team of Visma Lisa Bike. But sticking to the right-hand side of the road for now is SD Worx Pro Time with Femke Herrickse. Caroline Swinkels is the rider on the front. She had a brilliant ride yesterday. Again, constantly looking over her shoulder, flicking her elbow for her teammate in Gasparini to come through. She's got Lara Gillespie on her wheels, so this is pretty early to only have one rider ahead of Lara Gillespie. She'll be hoping Caroline Swinkels can recover and come back through.
This is a very tricky run-in. Although we've got a wide road, we've got a lot of road furniture coming in the middle of the road. The peloton is having to come out, leave that space and come in again. And as the peloton creates that space, there's a rush through after that road furniture has passed. And we see Canyon SRAM now coming to the front for Chiara Consoni, of course.
Canyon SRAM coming to the front on the right-hand side of the road, but SD Worx Pro Time still sticking to that right-hand gutter with Julia Kopechki again. Little trek trying to bring Clara Caponi up through the middle, as well as Liv Alula-Jaco, who have got Georgia Baker in their team. There's Melissa Bike here as well. You've got a couple of fast finishers. Imogen Wolf, the young 20-year-old British rider, is here. But SD Works Pro Time still with numbers. It is definitely Lorena Wiebes' race to lose. Zoe Baxter doing a phenomenal job though for the Canyon SRAM team, as is her teammate in lining things up for Consoni. She wants to go one better today. She finished second on the first stage. And look at Clara Caponi, she looks so focused there.
We've got the white young riders jersey of Fleur Moores a little bit further back at the front of the race, but on the right-hand side of the road, where the head of the race is actually on the left-hand side of the road. She's ahead of Margot van Patchenbeek, excuse me, who's got Clara Caponi on her wheel, who is really wanting to repeat her 2022 success here today. But Lorena Wiebes has it covered. They are just hugging that right-hand side of the road, trying to reduce their wind as much as possible. Now, and the two riders left, that is Lotte Kopecky at the head of the race.
Lotte Kopecky has found a gap through the middle, and now you can see the strength of Lotte Kopecky as she brings the team to the front. She's got a teammate behind her, Misha Bredevald, and we saw how they finished off yesterday in that technical fast running into Cockermouth. You can see how focused Lorena Wiebes is in that green leader's jersey. Everyone wants the back wheel of Lorena Wiebes. 1 kilometre to go now then into Blackpool. We're going to have a messy, chaotic sprint as FDJ Suez now trying to lead out the New Zealand champion, Ali Wollaston. All gritting their teeth, trying to hold their position on the road. Who is going to take the victory today? FDJ Suez on the left-hand side with Vittoria Guazzini, but SD Works Pro Time coming through. Leaving a lot to Misha Bredevald though, because they only have one rider here ahead of Lorena Wiebes.
Lara Gillespie just getting boxed in on there on the left-hand side. She lost both her lead-out riders at the same time, and she lost about 10 positions with it. Zoe Baxter, we can see there in the British National Champions jersey with Ali Wollaston from FDJ United on her wheel and Kim LeCourt-Pinard behind.
Chiara Consoni is now on the wheel of Ali Wollaston. Zoe Baxter coming through, the British champion, on the left-hand side of the screen. Lorena Wiebes, though, is looking for somewhere to get out. Can she find a gap? Zoe Baxter is leading. Lorena Wiebes is being patient. She knows there's a roaring headwind as Liv Alula-Jaco now trying to set things up for Georgia Baker. Lorena Wiebes, time and time again, though, has found the gap. She's accelerating, 250 metres to go. Lorena Wiebes again bike lengths into the rest in a league of her own. Lorena Wiebes accelerating to the line. Maggie Coles-Lister behind her. Kim LeCourt-Pinard, but Lorena Wiebes, take a bow. She has done it again. This is a sprinter at the very top of her game, and yet again, no one came close. Lorena Wiebes taking stage 2 of the Lloyds Tour of Britain Women. Lizzie, what a ride.
What a ride from Lorena Wiebes. She accelerated with 250 to go. Nobody could match her. I thought into that headwind that Maggie Coles-Lister could get on her wheel and maybe she could come round, but she just could not get on terms. A fantastic second place for Maggie Coles-Lister, but 135 professional wins for Lorena Wiebes. Her 9th win here in the Tour of Britain Women. What a day, what a rider. It just doesn't get better than that, does it, Danny?
It does not get better than that. Tactical masterclass again from the team of SD Works Pro Time, who didn't miss a beat all day. They measured their effort, their catch, to Oda Gissinger, who was the rider solo away until only a couple of kilometres to go. But here we've got a replay of this sprint. So Zoe Baxter, Lara Gillespie on the wheel, but look at the explosivity of Lorena Wiebes, just putting bike lengths ahead of her and the rest. We believe that's Maggie Coles-Lister behind and Lara Gillespie in 3rd position, but in a league of her own. 2 from 2 for Lorena Wiebes and the team of SD Works Pro Time. Phenomenal, spectacular sprint once again from the fastest woman on two wheels.
Well, Lara Gillespie got left with a lot of work to do there. One of her lead-out riders pulled off, and she thought she had a second one. Suddenly, she was on her own, and she had to get back to the front and do the sprint alone.
It looked like Kim LaCourt actually could have taken third position there, which is a fantastic finish if she did, because, of course, we have 10, 6 and 4 seconds on the line. Those bonuses that we didn't have in the intermediate sprint, let's not forget, with the neutralisation. And we have had confirmation of the top three. So Lorena Wiebes taking the victory ahead of Maggie Coles-Lister. A brilliant ride for her, brilliant finish from Human Powered Health. And Kim LaCourt taking third. So a few extra bonus seconds there for Kim LaCourt, as a couple of the riders here just crossing the line. Tennille Campbell being one of them. That's surprising. We saw Tennille Campbell really up towards the front, so maybe a technical problem for the Trinidad and Tobago rider. Blackpool Pleasure Beach there.
If the riders just carry on, they'll end up there.
That was a roller coaster of a stage, wasn't it, Lizzie?
Very, very, very good. Well, Kim LaCourt taking 4 bonus seconds there, which means that she's got a total of 6. So in the bonus second league, she is now ahead of Caroline Swinkles, who of course got 5 yesterday. No bonus seconds, of course, on offer in the sprint in Whalley, which had to be neutralised, of course, after a road traffic collision on the course. So Kim LaCourt doing a very, very good job to get herself into the third position there in what was really a pure sprint today.
Big box ticked for Kim LaCourt, who we know has a huge target to take this victory overall. Our Queen of the Mountains jersey will go to Steffi Haviland, who took 10 points in our first category climb of the day. Of course, for Nicker Pendle, that was neutralised. There were no points available there. A couple of the Continental riders just with a wave as they cross the finish line. Really impressive riding from the smaller teams today, not just sitting back, not just trying to follow, but really trying to do something in the race, constantly attacking, trying to snap that elastic. Some brilliant performances from the young riders too. Another brilliant stage. And Lorena Wiebes, her 17th victory of the season. It's quite astounding, really, and we almost expect it of her, don't we? But it's not easy to do. She's got to deliver time and time again. Yes, she's set up by her team, but ultimately she showed us again how much strength and speed that she's got. And it was interesting yesterday, actually, we had some Velon data come through that told us that she averaged over 1,000 watts for the final 10 seconds of the sprint yesterday, and average speed of over 61 kilometers. Insurance, Sudal. What a sprint we had. A little bit messy, a little bit chaotic, but we predicted that one. Lizzie, take us through this final kilometre into Blackpool.
Well, we can see SD Works on the right-hand side of the road, and we can see Lara Gillespie with her UAE teammate in front of her on the left-hand side of the road. Zoe Backstead there in the British National Champions jersey, just on the wheel of FDJ United Suez, who were trying to pilot Ali Wollaston. Now, as UAE team Inimad came up the right-hand side with Lara Gillespie there just as we passed the 1 kilometre to go mark. Suddenly, in a minute, we're going to find that Lara Gillespie is on her own.
Misha Bredevold was taking it up on the right-hand side with such strength and power, putting Lorena Wiebes in the perfect position here with around 500 metres to go. Maggie Coles-Lister was glued and stuck to the wheel of Lorena Wiebes. That's the wheel she wanted. She's got Zoe Backstead and Clara Caponi fighting for her wheel. Zoe Backstead constantly looking to see where Chiara Consoni was. Picnic Post Danelle, Viper Georgie again trying to set things up for Josie Nelson. Zoe Backstead just boxing Lorena Wiebes in here with around 200 metres to go.
Zoe Backstead here has a really perfect position for her lead out, but she's lost her lead out rider of Chiara Consoni, who is behind Clara Caponi of Little Trek. Then there's Lara Gillespie there just in the front. She's trying to get on terms, but she's in the full headwind with nobody there in front of her. And here on the right-hand side, Lorena Wiebes goes, and once she opens up the afterburners, she has got daylight. That daylight is never closed. Maggie Coles-Lister is the first to react behind, and she just cannot get on the wheel. Lara Gillespie is trying to come on terms, but she's got nothing left after moving up earlier in the wind. And as we see, Lorena Wiebes, hands in the air, daylight, win number 9 at the Tour of Britain Women.
Another spectacular day of racing at the Lloyds Tour of Britain. Lorena Wiebes is truly in a league of her own, opening up bike lengths to second place Maggie Coles-Lister and Kim LaCourte, knowing that every second counts in the general classification, will be thrilled, I'm sure, with that third place on the line here in Blackpool. We will get the top 10 to you as soon as we have it. We know that Steffi Haviland would have taken that Queen of the Mountains jersey. I wouldn't mind a little ride on that roller coaster. Lizzie?
I was just having a look at that flume ride. I'm wondering which that is. It's the white ride in the middle. The nice fun twists and turns on the way down. Blackpool Tower in the background there.
I think I've had enough adrenaline today though, I'm not gonna lie. That was fantastic, that final. Definitely got me out of my seat. Works Pro Time again, showing that strength and depth, having numbers there. Lotte Kopecky managed to get herself to the front, add a little bit more firepower to that lead out.
Has won.
Podium shots in Blackpool.
So Charlene has won, our expert, our Commonwealth champion. She has decided to give the jersey to Dougie.
Stage 2 won by Lorena Wiebes ahead of Maggie Coles-Lister, Kim LaCourte Pania, Ninka Veenhoven from the team of Ms. Melissa Bike in 4th, Lara Gillespie in 5th, Chiara Consoni, who lost Zoe Backstead in the final, having to settle for 6th. I'm sure she'll be disappointed with that one. Clara Caponi in 7th, Turncha Beekhouse in 8th for Uno X Mobility, Ali Watson in 9th, Giuliano Andano from the Picnic Post NL team in 10th.
Well, Ali Willison would have wanted more than 9th place, but I have to say that was a pretty spectacular recovery from yesterday. Even in the beginning of today's stage, she was not looking great. Be interesting to see who's won the Young Riders jersey of today, because there were only 3 riders who were in the competition yesterday. 3 riders in that top 32 riders. It was Fleur Moores, who of course wore the jersey today, Julia Londonio from Team Picnic Post NL, and Julia Kopechki of Team SD Works Pro Time. So it might be on countback today to see which of those riders manages to take the white Best Young Riders jersey.
So another sprint finish in this year's Lloyds Tour of Britain Women, but we're not expecting a sprint tomorrow. Lizzie, got a world-class field of riders here. We know Kim LaCourte is going to have a big circle around tomorrow's stage, a huge opportunity for her, as it is for riders like Lauren Dixon, Kate Courtney from the team of FDJ Suez United, UAE Team Limad for Caroline Swinkles, who has already picked up a couple of bonus seconds. Misha Bredeveld from the team of SD Works Pro Time, will be the leader. Femke de Vries, Cicely Ludwig, Rihanna Marcus, Liana Lippert, just to name a few. So I think there's going to be real teams trying to make things really tough tomorrow, and it's not just that summit climb up to the Great Orme. It's categorised as 2.5 kilometres at 5.9%. It's very inconsistent, but it's a really tough final because it's not just that final climb. We've got an uncategorised climb that comes with 7.2 kilometres to go, 2 kilometres at 5%. A very short plateau, and then it descends and goes up to the finish. So it's going to be a really, really tough stage.
You're right, Danny, and we've got two categorised climbs on the way, of course. We've got the second category Moyle Fodder and the second category Nebo climb, and that doesn't really tell the whole story. It's up and down the whole way. Anybody who's been to this beautiful area of North Wales in Denbighshire and up to the Llandudno Peninsula will know how hilly it is. There isn't really an inch of flat. The only bit of flat the riders will get to see as they head down towards Conwy on the coast, but really it's up and down all day. There are a lot of steep pitches, typical British roads, undulating all day.
Katrin Allerud taking the Combativity
Great
Award.
to see you so soon after the stage. Give us a bit of a flavour of what it was like out there today. A tricky day, of course, we had to stop the race, but for you, how tough were the conditions out there? How did the race go?
Oh, it was really nice and low racing rain. So for me, it was like when it started to rain, I was like really enjoying it. So then like I was thinking it's better to just try something and see, because we are not aiming for the sprint, so it's better to try and like see if the cup goes in or not. But like, yeah, of course it's hard to like beat someone in the, like for example Lorena here, but you never know before trying. And also like you see, we did in the tour also, like we hold in with a long like breakaway, so you never know.
Yeah, you do never know, because everybody says, oh, today into Blackpool is going to be a sprint. But we saw your team in the Women's Tour de France with that incredible day of Sigrid Hawkstead as she raced away, took a solo victory, took the yellow jersey. So for you as an athlete, for you as a rider, you still dream and you still believe that Lorena Wiebes is beatable?
Yeah, of course, if you never try, you never know.
Absolutely. So out there on the road, how was the support for you today?
How do you mean, like,
The crowd.
Oh, it's amazing. I really love racing here in England because like it's one of the best places. It's like the Tour de France or even better, you know, because it's like people always showing up.
Look at that, you're better than the Tour de France. Fantastic. So it is a place where riders really want to race.
Oh yeah, of course. Like I was so happy when the team wanted to bring me here. So yeah, I love racing here.
Amazing. Give her a round of applause, Katrin Allerud.
Unloved, sitting in your shed.
As we're waiting for the next rider to take to the podium, I've just had some quite interesting stats from Lorena Wiebes' sprint from Velon. So the sprint started with 225 metres from the finish line. Her max power, 1,200 watts, averaging 930 watts, with an average speed of 53.4 kilometres an hour. Oda Gissinger, interestingly, her brutal 25.3 kilometre solo attack, the time out there on her own, 37 minutes and 6 seconds. Her average speed, 41 kilometres an hour. Her average power, 270 watts. And her max power was 680 watts. So thanks to Velon for giving us that information. Really impressive stuff there. And obviously kept that effort up in the worst conditions through those technical corners as well, Lizzie. So some lovely added data for us to talk about.
It really gives us a little bit of colour and a little bit of watts for us to work on. She's got 3 more 100 watts to get out. She's going to get those 1,500 you mentioned yesterday, Danny. But 1,200 watts, what a rider.
Another spectacular day here in the Lloyds Tour of Britain Women. Another day taken by Lorena Wiebes, and great to hear from Katrin Allerud about the crowds. And they did come out in force today despite the treacherous conditions that we had out on the road. Pretty gnarly for the whole of the day, especially with that neutralised stop. The riders getting incredibly cold. Thanks so much for joining us for stage 2 of the Lloyds Tour of Britain Women. Please do join us tomorrow for more action. The race will head from Mould to the Great Orme, and it's set to be a fabulous one.